Oh, Canto. Chapter number 1, the activities of Maharaj Priyavrat. Before we go ahead from where we ended at, some revision, some points you remember from yesterday's discussion. Yes.
We were studying that the will of the Supreme Lord cannot be changed.
In which
So
context?
when Brahmaji comes and requests Privat Maharaj, then he said that not because of my own wish, but it is the desire of the Supreme Lord. And that's why the desire of the Supreme Lord is the Supreme, and all the Brahma, Shiva, everybody has to align with the desire of the Lord.
Okay. Any other? Thank you. Somebody online? There are many there. Yes, take the mic.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Starting, we are discussing that why means the turn of Priyavrat came. That means the Daksha has gone to do tapasya, and then he directly comes in the 6th Manvanta. So till that time, then means Priyavrat Maharaj was requested to come and rule the world.
By?
By first Swayambhu Manu comes, then later on Brahma along with many other came
Yes.
there to confirm it.
Any other? This mic transfer, I don't know what to do. Connection between islands is water.
We discussed that that sometimes we follow the instruction of the superior, though externally it may be looking not conducive to bhakti, but still will remain protected if we follow. We discussed the example of that marshal who told the subordinate to shoot. So he was removed, but subordinate got promoted. So we will surely get promotion if we just follow.
Afterwards, one devotee was suggesting, who maybe Sham Jagannath Prabhu, somebody was suggesting that His Grace Sankashada Adhikari Prabhu, his name was in Sannyas list. And his GBC suggested, you can think of this option. This girl is there. She would be a very nice preaching partner, companion for you in your preaching. So what do you think about it? So he understood GBC's desire that I marry her. So he accepted and he married, and then he flourished in his preaching, and then eventually became Guru also. And we all know what he is now. So he followed the order of the superior, and advancement is seen by all of us. Any other?
Yesterday we discussed in great detail that how family attachment to family life and Krishna consciousness go ill together. You know? And that Priyavrat Maharaj, although he means it was clear that going to the family, entering the family life was not very suitable to his bhakti in terms of his practices, but still he later on will see that he aligned with the will of the Brahma because he was superior.
So attachment is not good, but affection can be there. As one part we saw Prabhupada's purport, he said, husband should be affectionate to wife, but not attached. Similarly, he will be affectionate to children, but not attached to them. Yeah, difference between attachment is to the body. Affection is to the soul, who is part and parcel of the Lord and entrusted to him in his care. Any other? Some others who did not say anything.
Prabhuji, can I try?
Just one minute, Mataji. One Prabhu is saying, but without mic he is saying. I am able to hear, but those who are on online, they are not able to hear.
As we discussed that Priyavrat Maharaj, that yes, he has to obey the order, but according to ours, like how we can follow is in the form of the Varnashram Dharma. We can obey the instructions of the Supreme Lord by following the Varnashram Dharma according to our Guna and Karma. So
we have to follow Guru's order, Daivi
Varnashram.
Varnashram. And when we are not able to follow, then at least Varnashram.
Varnashram. And we have
That
Exactly.
was my point to be, because
Okay.
I'm talking about myself who is not fully surrendered. But highest and topmost and the best is always follow Guru's order. General orders. If specific order comes, then ideally one has to give himself for it. Mataji wanting to say something. Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, yesterday this shloka, the fifth and the sixth shloka were very heart-touching shlokas, where actually if a devotee is facing any, impediments in his life, so he does not, stop himself from being absorbed. And Srimad Charnarvinda Makaranda Rasa. So anybody who has, uh, drank the, nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet, so then his mind is always absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord, and he's he's aveshtita chetaso bhagavata paramhamsa daita katham. So he is always absorbed in hearing the glories, and he never gives up his position also. Other whatever devotional service that he has come up to, even if any impediments is there, because he's always absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord. So even time cannot actually stop him from doing devotional service.
Okay, thank you. Prabhupada's one of the lines that while chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, a devotee remembers all the activities of the Lord, pastimes of the Lord. Any other? Somebody who did not say till now. Otherwise, yourself. Okay.
We discussed that very nice. Parishit Maharaj is asking two types of questions. One is he is telling that how is it possible that somebody who has tasted Krishna consciousness falls again, means comes down to household life. This is one point. Other point is somebody who is materialistic, filled with materialistic desire, he cannot take up to Krishna consciousness. Means somebody who is unless yesham tantagatam papam jaranam punya karmanam, like until they get freed from material desires, they cannot take up to Krishna consciousness. So what is happening in Priyavrat Maharaj case? He is asking like this to Shukdev Goswami. So Shukdev Goswami is telling this is grace of the Lord, that though he was that somebody who is fixed in Krishna consciousness, even if he gets drifted away, by the grace of the Lord, he will come back again. Because on the path of bhakti, nothing goes in vain.
First question is, if he was liberated, how did he get into Grahastha life? And second is, if he got into it, then how did he become such a great worshipper of the Lord? He achieved the perfection.
So we discussed
that is
it
surprise.
was an arrangement of the Lord.
Grace of the Lord. Yes.
Yesterday when one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada has written that one who is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, he will not be drifted by in the materialistic way of life, and one who is absorbed in materialistic way of life cannot become Krishna conscious. So now one question is that although a person may be absorbed in materialism, one of the purports, but there is chance for him to become Krishna conscious, but gradually, because the by association. So I just failed to understand this statement of Prabhupada. There Prabhupada writes in the purport.
On his own, it is not possible, but by devotee's grace, it is possible. You had yesterday one question, which I think I interrupted because of the lack of time.
But later on, it got answered.
You got the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, good. If we just stay on, you'll get all the answers for all your questions. That is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Only one has to stay on, go on. Okay, so where did we end? 17th we completed. So 17th to 19th is about a self-controlled person is unaffected by family life. Therefore, seek shelter of the Lord and conquer your senses. So 18th. 17th we covered? No. Sorry, we are beginning. Okay, sorry. 16th we covered. So 17th is this section. 17, 18, 19, 3 verses. A self-controlled person is unaffected by family life. Therefore, seek shelter of the Lord and conquer your senses. Who says this? Who is saying? Brahma. Brahma came earlier and he is speaking. He is not yet gone. His departure also will be described. So the translation is, even if he goes from forest to forest, this is very nice section for grihasthas and maybe for us also. Just see, even if he goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage, because he is living with 6 co-wives, the mind and knowledge acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied learned man who has conquered his senses. So how a brahmachari or a sannyasi may go forest to forest, but he is carrying 6 wives. Whereas a householder has 1 wife at home, but still he can conquer his senses. So think again. Think again, not of marrying, but not getting carried away by 6 wives, co-wives. The mind and knowledge acquiring senses. So read some part, half of that purport. Means first paragraph.
Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Grihe Vava Nete Thake Hagauranga Bale Dake. Whether one is situated in the forest or at home, if he is engaged in the devotional service of Lord Chaitanya, he is a liberated person. Here this is also repeated. For one who has not controlled his senses, going to the forest to become a so-called yogi is meaningless. Because his uncontrolled mind and senses are going with him, he cannot achieve anything, even by giving up his household life and staying in the forest.
Okay. So the point is clear, isn't it? So in our devotional practice also, especially in chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We are supposed to go to forest, the forest of pastimes of Krishna. But then we carry our 6 wives there, and then we face troubles. Then we are with our wives only, and Krishna's pastimes remain aside. That I'm saying about all sadhakas in general. Here practically grihasthas and brahmacharis both are being addressed. He's quoting Narottam Das Thakur. Elsewhere also it is said, what is that? Guru he thake vane thako. Guru thako vane thako. Sada hari bole dako. Isn't it? Next. Sokhe dokhe bole nako. Vadane hari naam koro re. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also has seen the same thing. So it doesn't matter the externals. We choose externals as per our thing. Just like chanting, there are no hard and fast rules. But we make some rules to be able to chant better as per our conditioning. Similarly, there are no external rules about these ashrams. But then we enter in a particular ashram thinking or knowing that this is conducive for me. So what is most important is to give one's heart to Krishna and control the mind and senses. Otherwise, it's difficult. So Prabhupada talks about some Bengali saying, if you go to Bengal, your fortune will go with you. Our first concern, therefore, should be to control the senses. And since the senses cannot be controlled unless engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, our most important duty is to engage the senses in devotional service. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. Bhakti means engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord. Just withdrawing is not the point. The senses will not remain. They will be very agitated. If you try to withdraw, they will revolt. They will attack back. Just like in the 5th canto, that not 5th canto, I think, Bharat Maharaj section, that example comes. If a hunter catches an animal, the captive animal can anytime attack him back and finish him off also. So one has to be very alert. Mind is very dangerous. That's the most important, is to always engage our mind and senses in the service of the Lord. That is the only way. Otherwise, on its own, these senses cannot be controlled. They are the servants of the Lord, and Lord is the master of all our mind and senses, Rishikesh. So only he can control our mind and senses. Tumi Rishikesha, Rushika Damiya. Next. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Gopinath song says, you are the Lord and master of senses. You please control my mind and senses. So many times sadhakas, practitioners try to get into this zone of, oh, my mind and senses are not coming under control only. So much. In one sense, sincerity is there. They don't want disturbances, obstacles in their devotional practice, but the formula is not understood. Formula is to offer mind and senses to Lord in his service. Not that I can control my mind and senses. That will rather lead to frustration only. For brahmacharis, it may become a big problem because they get into it too much. I will control my mind and senses. So that will not do. Only if we engage in the Lord's service, that will happen. So iha yasya harir dasya karmana manasagira nikhilashu api avastasu jivan muktasa uchyate. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a responsible officer. His example is given, and we know how he did. Yet his service to the cause of expanding the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is unique. Shri Prabodhan Saraswati Thakur says, Durdan Tendriya Kala Sarpapatali Protkhat Damstrayate. The sense organs are certainly our greatest enemies, and they are therefore compared to venomous serpents. However, if a venomous serpent is bereft of its poisonous fangs, it is no longer fearful. Similarly, if the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, there is no need to fear their activities. So this is the formula. This we have to understand. Not get frustrated thinking that, oh, I am not able to control my mind and senses. That is not possible only. Nobody can control his mind and senses. But by engaging them in service of the Lord who is their master of the mind and senses, he will control them. Because he wants service from our mind and senses. Who will not like to have many servants? So we have the tendency in us that we want more and more followers, more and more yes men, more followers, more servants. So this is coming from Lord only. So Lord wants more servants. So we should offer these servants, mind and senses. If we don't offer him and we only try to control them, no, the mind and senses should be my servants. Then they will overpower. The devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement move within this material world, but because their senses are fully engaged in the service of the Lord, they are always aloof from the material world. They are always living in a transcendental position. So this is the formula. So one who has controlled his mind and senses by engaging in Krishna service, he can move around anywhere in the world. There will be absolutely no disturbance. And Prabhupada is the best example. Obviously, his so many followers also. They went in so many different places. They did not get carried away because they engaged their mind and senses in the Lord's service. 18th, one who is situated in household life and who systematically conquers his mind and five sense organs is like a king in his fortress who conquers his powerful enemies. After one has been trained in household life and his lusty desires have decreased, he can move anywhere without danger. Vishwanath Thakur says, without danger, with his weakened senses. Senses have become weak, so they cannot trouble him anymore. He can wander anywhere in the world. Read the purport.
The Vedic system of 4 varnas and 4 ashramas is very scientific, and its entire purpose is to enable one to control the senses. Before entering household life, Grahastha ashrama, a student is fully trained to become Jitendriya, a conqueror of the senses. Such a mature student is allowed to become a householder. And because he was first trained in conquering his senses, he retires from household life and becomes Vanprastha as soon as the strong waves of youthful life are past. And he reaches the verge of old age at 50 years or slightly more. Then, after being further trained, he accepts sannyas. He is then a fully learned and renounced person who can move anywhere and everywhere without fear of being captivated by material desires. The senses are considered very powerful enemies. As a king in a strong fortress can conquer powerful enemies, so a householder in Grahastha Ashrama household life can conquer the lusty desires of youth and be very secure when he takes Vanprastha and Sannyas.
So he retires from household life and becomes Vanaprastha as soon as the strong waves of youthful life are past, and he reaches the very verge of old age at 50 years or slightly more. So Grahasthas can control their senses by engaging them appropriately in their Grahastha ashram. So similarly, brahmacharis can also do that. This will read the commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. This is verse number 18. Vishnu Shakti Thakur's path says, there are three types of people in the world. Those without sense control, those with senses control, and those who desire to control the senses. There is no fault if the first two types enter household life. Those without sense control can enter household life, and those with sense control can enter household life. And there is praise for the person in householder life who desires to conquer the senses. So while being in household life, he is desiring to control the senses. That is the third category. Desiring to conquer the senses, after first situating himself in household life, one should endeavor to control them by restricting them. Because an intelligent person taking shelter of a fort can conquer strong enemies. He can act in household life or elsewhere as he likes when the enemy has been minimized. An alternative vision has Yudhet. He can assail the depleted enemy. So Yudhet word is coming. Okay, so 19th. Lord Brahma continued, my dear Priyavrat, seek shelter inside the opening in the lotus of the feet of the Lord, whose navel is also like a lotus. Thus conquer the six sense organs, the mind and knowledge acquiring senses. Accept material enjoyment because the Lord extraordinarily has ordered you to do this. You will thus always be liberated from material association and be able to carry out the Lord's orders in your constitutional position. So he's blessed also. So word used is tvam tu abjanabhangri. Tu means but you are not among those three. Those who want to control the senses, those who have controlled the senses, and which are the third? Those who desire to control the senses. So Vishnu Shakti Thakur's commentary you want to. Your shelter is the lotus feet of the Lord. You are not like others who have controlled the senses, because you have given up enmity with the senses which you have conquered. He has already conquered the senses, and he has no enmity with the senses. Your six senses are the best of friends, since they are attached to the beauty of the Lord. Enjoy the objects given especially by your master. Enjoyment arising from karma is a cause of bondage. When karma only leads to some enjoyment coming, then it will lead to bondage, but not enjoyment given by the Lord. All of us, we can see in devotional life, we have so many nice things, chanting, dancing, feasting. Nice prasad comes, we take. That is enjoyment given by the Lord. Similarly, so many other nice things we do. So that is all fine. Because Lord has given that. Then later hand over the kingdom to your son, go to the forest and remain there, worshipping the Lord. Okay, read the purport by Prabhupada.
There are three kinds of men within this material world. Those who are trying to enjoy the senses to the utmost are called karmis. Above them are jnanis, who try to conquer the urges of the senses, and above them are the yogis, who have already conquered the senses. None of them, however, are situated in transcendental position. Only devotees who belong to none of the above mentioned groups are transcendental, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samate tadam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus come to the level of Brahman. Lord Brahma here advised Priyavrat to remain transcendental in the fortress, not of a family life, but of the lotus feet of the Lord. Abjanabhangri Saroja.
Next lines, if you wish, you may underline.
When a bumblebee enters the opening of the lotus flower and drinks its honey, it is fully protected by the petals of the lotus. The bee is undisturbed by the sunshine and other external influences. Similarly, one who always seeks shelter at the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead is protected from all dangers.
So here, what he's saying that you will not be taking shelter of that household life, you will be taking shelter of Krishna, his lotus feet, like a bumblebee is protected by the nice petals while drinking the honey. Similar verse comes in the 11th canto also, 19th chapter, 9th verse. It says, Tapatrayena abhihatasya ghore santapyamanasya bhavadvanisha pashyami nanyat sharanam tavangri dvandva tapatrad amrutabhivarshad. He says, my dear Lord, for one who is being tormented on the terrible path of birth and death and is constantly overwhelmed by the threefold miseries, I do not see any possible shelter other than your two lotus feet, which are just like a refreshing umbrella that pours down showers of delicious nectar. Umbrella, we all know, inside it has spokes by which that kind of canopy kind of structure is intact. So that spoke, from there, imagine that, nectar is being dripped. So what will be the case? Forget about the raining outside, that is already protected through umbrella, and on the top of that, this person is just all the time receiving the nectar drops. He will be completely absorbed. He won't know that it's raining outside. So that is the power of devotional service of one who has taken shelter of the two lotus feet of the Lord. One will just forget all the troubles. So that's why he's saying, for you, household life will not be a trouble at all. You will not get affected by any of the troubles. Rather, you will use it for Krishna's glorification only. Prabhupada quotes Samashritaya Pada Pallava Plavam, those who take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, which are like boat to cross Bhavasagar, and they don't want to remain in this material world. That is not a consideration, which is a place filled with dangers at every step. Next, he says, our actual duty is to carry out the supreme order of the personality of Godhead. If we are fixed in our determination to carry out the supreme order of the Lord, we are always secure, regardless of where we are situated, whether in hell or in heaven. The words used are Prakritim Bhajasva. Prakritim refers to one's constitutional position. Every living entity has the constitutional position of being an eternal servant of God. Therefore, Lord Brahma advised Priyavrat, be situated in your original position as an eternal servant of the Lord. If you carry out his orders, you will never fall, even in the midst of material enjoyment. Material enjoyment achieved by dint of one's fruitive activities differs from material enjoyment given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A devotee sometimes appears to be in a very opulent position, but he accepts that position to follow the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a devotee is never affected by material influences. We know Pundarik Vidyanidhi. One nice Vaishnava who has come to Navadip. Would you like to come? And Gadadhar Pandit was always eager to meet devotees, advanced devotees. But when they went there, he saw something different only. That Pundarik Vidyanidhi was sitting on very costly seat, and then his hair were applied very fragrant oils. They were being combed, and he was looking in one mirror this side, and then he would look this side also. Like both sides, see, like in the saloon, there's so many mirrors there. You don't have to, you can simultaneously, but for him, he was looking this side and how this side of my hair and all that. And so many, he was being fed tambul, and so many things were there that bewildered simple Gadadhar. Thought, is he the Vaishnav? What kind of Vaishnav is he? He's just enjoying life like a materialist, or worse than a materialist in one sense. Even materialist doesn't get to enjoy so much. But Mukunda understood this bhav in the heart of Gadadhar. Bhav means some bewilderment. So he sang, Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam jigam sayayapayad asadvi lebhe gatim dhatri uchutam tatwanyam kamva dayalum sharanam rajema. That very treacherous witch, Putana, who came smearing very deadly poison on her breast to feed and kill him. But Krishna was so merciful that he gave her a very high position of being the nurse in Golok Vrindavan. Who could be more merciful than my Lord, and whose other shelter could I be taking? And as soon as Pundarik Vidyanidhi heard this, he went mad. Because he was as such always Krishna conscious, but this was in particular that pastime, how Lord is merciful. So immediately he, all that combed hair, he just made them like this, and he took out all the ornaments, clothes hit, started tearing off, things, very costly things around, started throwing here, there. And 10 of his men were trying to control him. They were not successful. Ultimately, he fell unconscious for some 6 hours or 9 hours or so. And then Gadadhar Pandit understood, oh, this is a very exalted soul. Exalted soul will miss any materialist, attached materialist will not do like this with his costly decoration as well as the things around. He will never break his things. In fact, he will not allow others also to touch. Isn't it? But here is very exalted devotee. Then he understood that. So devotees are given such things by the Lord only. Lord wants his devotees to be having opulence also, so that they can engage in the Lord's service. So Lord has all varieties of devotees. One should not misunderstand devotees. So Prabhupada says, so they are not affected by material influences. The devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement are preaching all over the world in accordance with the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They have to meet many karmis, but by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are unaffected by material influences. Kabhu na badibe tomara vishaya taranga punaryapi yaitai pabe mora sanga. To whom who said to whom? Without checking in folio, you may tell. Kurma Brahman, yes. That he was eager to go with the Lord after Lord stayed in his house for one night, and he was frustrated in his family life. So when he saw such a very happy, blissful life, chanting, dancing, feasting, why not join Sankirtan moment of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So when next day morning Mahaprabhu left, he also started walking behind. Mahaprabhu said, "No, you go back." And I think that that's where he said that I don't know what are the instructions. Some instruction he gave. "Jare dekho tare ko kuch." This was there. Or some instruction he gave him. Somebody can check there. Just a verse before this. So then he said, "You just don't worry about all these sense waves, sense objects waves hitting you. You will never be hit by them. Rather, you will be able to meet me here only." Did you get it?
यारे देखे तारे कहे कृष्ण उपदेश हमारा
हाँ.
गुरु है या तारा ही देश.
So this is very famous shloka we all know. So that's what was told. If you do this, then kabhuna badibe tomar vishaya taranga. Then never the sense enjoyment waves will hit you. Rather, you will have my darshan here only. A sincere devotee who engages in the service of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by preaching his cult all over the world will never be affected by Vishaya Taranga, material influences. On the contrary, in due course of time, he will return to the shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and will thus have perpetual association with him. Best way of defense is to attack, not that try to be in some bomb shelter or something like that. No, attack. So attack on behalf of the Lord. Preach his message. Then Lord will come to accompany you. Just like that king also, Purushottam Devarai, isn't it? The father of Prataprudra. He attacked the other person for what? For Lord's sake, because they kind of minimize the Lord. Hey, what kind of king is this? King of Jagannath Puri, Odisha. Hey, he's just a bhangi, a street sweeper. So we don't want to give our daughter in marriage to such a bhangi, street sweeper. So king felt that this is not my insult, this is insult of Lord Jagannath. Being street sweeper of Lord Jagannath's carts is not a joke. This is a privilege. This is not insult. This is privilege. But this fellow doesn't understand. Then he attacked, and that's why Krishna Balram were with him. So they defeated that person. So Lord will go with us if we go on his behalf for preaching. Preaching means basically convincing everyone Krishna is the supreme master. Become his servant and you will enjoy life. So one who goes for that, Lord assists him. And he cannot be hit by the waves of sense enjoyment. That's not possible. If we go for ulterior motive, our own conquest, then we will be smashed. Our own senses first will attack us. Then the outsiders will also attack. So that's why one should not do self-propaganda, self-aggrandizement. That should not be done. One should go for the Lord. Okay, so that is 19th. Now 20 to 22. 3 talk about Priyavrat accepts Lord Brahma's request. Shri Shukdev Goswami continued, after thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the 3 worlds, Priyavrat, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Vishnu Shukdev Thakur says he considered himself inferior because he was grandson of Brahma. Brahma's son Swayambhu and Swayambhu Manu's son Uttanpad, and then eventually Priyavrat is there. So he's great grandson in that sense. So he's inferior in that way also. It is the duty of the inferior to carry out the order of the superior with great respect. So we should find out who all are superior to us, to whom all we are inferior, and whether we are carrying out their order, and also with great respect. Okay, 21st. Lord Brahma was then worshipped by Manu, who respectfully satisfied him as well as he could. Priyavrat and Narad also looked upon Brahma with no tinges of resentment. Having engaged Priyavrat in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode, Satyalok, which is indescribable by the endeavor of mundane mind or words. Brahma's abode is also indescribable, Satyalok. Read the first paragraph of the Parva. Who has the mic?
Manu was certainly very satisfied that Lord Brahma had persuaded his son Priyavrat to take the responsibility for ruling the world. Priyavrat and Narada were also very satisfied. Although Brahma had forced Priyavrat to accept the management of worldly affairs, thus breaking his vow to remain brahmachari and completely engage in devotional service, Narada and Priyavrat did not look upon Brahma with resentment. Narada was not at all sorry that he had been frustrated in making Priyavrat a disciple. Both Priyavrata and Narada were exalted personalities who knew how to respect Lord Brahma. Therefore, instead of looking upon Brahma with resentment, they very feelingly offered him their respect. Lord Brahma then returned to his celestial abode, known as Satyaloka, which is described here as being impeccable and being unapproachable by words.
About Brahma, next paragraph says this Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, his lifespan, etc. Then ahead, Prabhupada says, in Satyalok there is no birth, death, old age, or disease. In other words, since Satyalok is situated next to Brahmalok or the Brahman effulgence, it is almost as good as Vaikuntha Lok. It has been described as Avam Manasa Gochara, or beyond the description of our words and the imagination of our minds. So that word comes in the middle of the shloka, if you see. Samavasthanam avang manasam. Vang means watch, the speech, and manas, mind. So that which cannot be described in words cannot be imagined by mind. That kind of abode he has. Next, 22nd. Swayambhu Manu, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires. With the permission of the great sage Narada, he delivered to his son the governmental responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous, poisonous ocean of material desires. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, material desires are disturbing sense objects. As long as one is in that life, so sense objects, so many sense objects surrounding one in household duties, household life. So they are all disturbing. So he just achieved relief from the most dangerous, poisonous ocean of disturbing sense objects. Swayambhu Manu. Priyavrat is told to enter in royal duties. No? So this is about Swayambhu Manu. Yeah, that way everybody is pure devotee. But for us, we are not pure devotees. We have to be clear. That time is gone. Panchashordam Vanam Vrajet. Now he's 50 plus. In fact, his son Uttanpad also ruled. Several millenniums have passed, isn't it? Now it's time for Swayambhu Manu to go for his full dedication to the Lord. Now his responsibilities are over. As per Brahma's guidance, Priyavrata is going to enter. He going to become king, family man, etc. So his duties are over. So he's proceeding. Maharaj Ikshvaku ruled this planet Earth. We know sun god Vivaswan, his son Vaivaswat Manu, and his son Ishwaku. He ruled this planet Earth. Swayambhu Manu, however, appears to have been in charge of the entire universe. And he entrusted to his son, Maharaj Priyavrat, the responsibility of maintaining and protecting all the planetary systems. Dhara Mandala means planet. This earth, for instance, is called Dhara Mandala. Akhila, however, means all or universal. It is therefore, yesterday somebody was asking questions, the answer is coming here. It is therefore difficult to understand where Maharaj Priyavrat was situated. But from this literature, his position certainly appears greater than that of Vaivaswat Manu, for he was entrusted with all the planetary systems of the entire universe. Vaivaswat Manu was, his son Ishwaku was ruling over earth, whereas Priyavrat is ruling over the entire universe. So where exactly he was is difficult to say. Next paragraph after one line. At present, politicians are very eager to take charge. You can read that that line, those lines. So in contrast to Swayambhu Manu, who took great satisfaction from abnegating the responsibility for ruling all the planetary system, what are the current politicians doing? Read.
At present, the politicians are very eager to take charge of the government, and they engage their men in the canvassing from door to get votes to win the post of president or similar exalted office. On the contrary, however, herein we find that King Priyavrata had to be persuaded by Lord Brahma to accept the post of emperor of the entire universe. Similarly, his father Swayambhu Manu felt relieved to entrust the universal government to Priyavrata. Thus, it is evident that the king and executive heads of government in the Vedic age never accepted their positions for sense enjoyment.
So now in comparison to modern politicians, how much they are going to win over? Maximum one country if he becomes prime minister. If he is chief minister, one state only. And anything lower than that, it becomes smaller and smaller. In contrast to that, what a big, it's a universal kingdom to them. But both Swayambhu Manu, he wants to just hand it over to Priyavrata, and Priyavrata is not ready to take it up. So how detached they were from this material thing. But they did it as service to the Lord. So if only politicians read fifth canto, or for that matter first canto, how nice it would be. At least they would know that how I should not be attached to my post and position. In fact, Dhritarashtra was also like that 5,000 years back. Dhruta means to capture, and Rashtra means the chair, the main seat. So he captured the main seat. He wanted to be the king of Hastinapur and the whole globe. So that is a big problem with politicians. Yes, little ahead. Read that ahead. Such exalted kings.
Such exalted kings who were known as Rajarishis ruled only to maintain and protect the kingdom of the welfare of the citizens. The history of Priyavrata and Swayambhu Manu describes how exemplary, responsible monarchies perform the duties of government with disinterested, keeping themselves always aloof from the contamination of material attachments.
So that is what is called as Shyam Jagannath Prabhu. What is Yukta Vairagya, Anasaktasya Vishayam. You are telling the term, he is telling the whole shloka. Okay. Detached worker. Internally, he is not attached to the kingdom, but externally is working as is the will of the Lord. So that is required. Anybody who handling any post and position should be working like that. That is the art of work. That's why 6 chapters talk about that. third chapter, fifth chapter are explicitly mentioned also as karma yoga, action in Krishna. They're not at all interested in that post and position. But they do perfect job for superiors on behalf of them. Just like Lakshman, what do you call it? Grossly did it. He said, I will not rule over the Ayodhya. If at all, you only have to rule. He said, no, I am not going to come. I have to be in forest. So then he said, okay, chalo. You will rule in the form of your padukas, sandals. And I will be just representative of yourself. That's all. So he did it very grossly. But all these other kings, pure devotees, Rajarshis, they did it not that grossly, but they were in that same mood. This kingdom belongs to whatever. Lord ultimately, but whatever. Like here, Priyavrata is saying, Brahma, on behalf of Brahma, I am here. This is Brahma's kingdom, Brahma's desire. Let, O Lord, thy will be done, not mine. So this is the mood of every leader, then only he can be successful. Otherwise, he'll be corrupt. Maya will corrupt him. If he sits on that seat just for his own enjoyment, his own self-aggrandizement, so then he will be smashed. Just a matter of time, today or tomorrow. So only detached people only should be given posts and position. That's why the brahmachari training from childhood for all Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, because they are going to head the society. Brahmanas, they are going to head in that way because they are knowledge givers. Kshatriyas, they are going to rule also. And Vaishyas, they are going to have money power. So all three leaders, they only have all controls with them. All three have to undergo brahmachari training and learn that everything is Lord's on his behalf. I do this in a very detached way. Then the society runs smoothly. Else, the way we have society, everybody, rat race, competition, cutthroat competition, kill others and take over the kingdom and rule as much as possible while being on the seat, fill your pockets and all that you do. Some people have opened all the money that they got, what do you call that, corrupt money, corruption. They have put in so many, Swiss bank, many politicians have, many others have opened many institutions, educational institutions, so that it will look fair. Black money make it so-called white. So all corrupt fellows. Material affairs have herein been compared to an ocean of poison. Samsara vishanale, divani shihiyajwale, golokera premadhan, harinama sankirtan. So ahead he says, Manu wanted to seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore, when his son Priyavrat took charge of his worldly affairs, Manu was very relieved. That is the system of Vedic civilization. At the end of life, one must free himself from worldly affairs and completely engage in the service of the Lord. So worldly affairs for Kshatriyas, for Grihasthas also it is recommended Panchashordham, Vanam Brajit. From after 50, they should not, try to interfere and all. Better they go to Anaprastha forest only or ISKCON temple, render services and not interfere in family affairs. It is said after the son is married, his wife comes, she is the queen of the house, that whole kingdom of house. So if the mother-in-law is sitting there and saying, you're not like this, you should make sabji like this and you should do like this. So she is a headache to this queen. She's officially king, unofficially she's just what do you call, no one, that daughter-in-law. So mother-in-law creates hell for daughter-in-law. And similarly, the father-in-law also, he will also poke his nose in 100 matters. So he should, both should go out of the house, get lost. Don't create disturbance and do some meaningful service to the Lord. So that is what is recommendation by the scriptures. But when they remain there, so much headache they create. So whole house is disturbed. The word Surarshi, okay, that will not go far. Next, 23rd to 35, these 13 verses talk about 4 things. Priyavrat's rule, Priyavrat's marriages, 2 marriages, his descendants, and wonderful activities. 4 things: his rule, his marriages, 2 marriages, descendants, and wonderful activities. He got some 7 sons from first wife, Barhishmati, and 3 sons from the second wife. Not 7 sons, 10 sons, 3 became sannyasis. but 7 sons became rulers of 7 continents, or not continent, what do you call that? Islands. Yes. And the first son, Agnidhara, got 9 sons, and they became rulers of Jambudvip. Similarly, each of the next consecutive sons also of Priyavrat, they got some number of sons, and accordingly that island was divided, and like everything perfectly divided. You will see that how it is done. Fifth canto describes that later on very elaborately. Here just a glimpse is given. So 23rd in particular is the answer to the first verse. How did he enjoy household life? He was a liberated soul. How did he enjoy household life? That is coming in 23rd verse. So why did he enjoy also? So Jiva Goswami says that word Manavardhano, last line. Though he was free from all faults like attachment, he ruled for increasing the respect for Brahma. Brahma wanted him to rule, so he ruled. So Manavardhano, that is Jiva Goswami's comment. So 23rd translation. Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaj Priyavrat fully engaged in worldly affairs. Yet he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are the cause of liberation from all material attachment. Although Priyavrat Maharaj was completely free from all material contamination, he ruled the material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. Jiva Goswami says, Brahma, Manabardhanu, to increase his man. Okay, in the purport, Prabhupada says, he engaged himself fully in governmental affairs just to show respect to Lord Brahma. Arjun had also acted in the same way. Arjun had no desire to participate in political affairs or the fighting at Kurukshetra. But when ordered to do so by the Supreme Lord Krishna, he executed those duties very nicely. Next, if you want, you can underline. One who always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord is certainly above all the contamination of the material world. That is what is a Rajarshi, not just a Raja. A saint inside, king outside. Pure devotee inside and ruler outside. So because he's always contemplating on the Lord. So one who is contemplating inside cannot have contamination outside. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada quotes Yoginam api sarvesham. He's always worshipping me, thinking of me in the mind. Maharaj Priyavrat therefore was a liberated person and was among the highest of yogis. Yet superficially he became the emperor of the universe in accordance with the order of Lord Brahma. Showing respect to his superior in this way was another of his extraordinary qualifications. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, he meditated on the lotus feet of the Lord, who had clear power to destroy the bondage of the whole world. Priyavrat had burned all impurities in the heart. Though he was most pure, he increased his respect by following the order of Brahma. He was already pure and he increased his respect by following order of Brahma. And after quoting Narayana Paras Sarve, Prabhupada says, a devotee who is actually advanced anything, opportunity to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the proper explanation of why Priyavrat engaged in worldly affairs, although he was a liberated person. Also, only because of this principle does a Mahabhagavat, who has nothing to do with the material world, come down to the second platform of devotional service to preach the glories of the Lord all over the world. So Prabhupada is also explaining in terms of Uttamadhikari coming down to the platform of Madhyamadhikari to preach, to execute the order of the Lord. Just like Priyavrat also, for the same reason, became the king, ruler. Then 24th. Thereafter, Maharaj Priyavrat married Barhishmati, the daughter of the Prajapati named Vishwakarma. In her, he begot 10 sons, equal to him in beauty, character, magnanimity, and other qualities. He also begot a daughter the youngest of all, named Urjaswati. So his sons are given the title is Udaran, whose magnanimity. He had sons, or their magnanimity. So Vishwan Shakti Thakur says they were abandoned in conduct and qualities, like him, like Priyavrat only, these 10 sons. And Shrijiv Goswami says he married, Priyavrat married to rule. How it's so, that will come ahead also, details. But one who has to rule, he also has to marry. That will come ahead. That's what. Just wait for some few shlokas, it will be seen. Or here only it is coming in the purport. I think Prabhupada does not allow the secret to remain in secret for a long time. You read the first paragraph, you will know the secret. You
Maharaj,
can- okay.
Maharaj Priyavrat not only carried out the order of Lord Brahma by accepting the duties of government, but also married Bharismati, the daughter of Vishwakarma, one of Prajapatis. Since Maharaj Priyavrat was fully trained in transcendental knowledge, he could have returned home and conducted the business of a government as a brahmachari. Instead, however, when he returned to household life, he accepted a wife also. The principle is that when one becomes a grasta, he must live perfectly in that order, which means he must live peacefully with a wife and children. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first wife died, his mother requested him to marry for a second time. He was 20-year-old and was going to take sannyas at the age of 24. Yet, by the request of his mother, he married. As long as I am in household life, he told his mother, I must have a wife, for household life does not mean staying in a house. Real household life means living in a house with a wife.
So this is what is recommended. An example given of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. He was knowing, not that suddenly at 24, from nowhere he decided to take sannyas. He knew for sure. Yes, 4 years are there, but he's still married as per the instruction of Mother Sachi. And as long as I'm in household life, I must marry, not just staying in house. One has to have wife. Just like it is said, putra vina graha shunyam. Similarly, grahastha cannot be grahastha without wife. He has to marry. Family life means they have to have children, and grahastha life means having wife also, not just not marrying, what they call bachelor daddies. So not that kind of thing. Marrying and conducting spiritual activities while being in married life with one's own wife. So you got it, na? They say, na, behind every successful man, there is a hand of a woman, isn't it? So man gets encouragement by wife, isn't it? Sometimes you can see also so many things. She will give trigger from inside. Sometimes neighbor in the fight is there, and wives will guide their husband. Come on, you also, and then he also becomes shurveer. How many of you seen? In the villages, it is very common. People become inspired. We have no experience, isn't it? Who is the woman behind our? That means you agree yours is a successful life. Behind every successful man, there is hand of a woman. If the brahmacharis understand that they are successful in life, so the secret is Srimati Radharani's benedicting hand, isn't it? So accept the grace and become his grace. Next paragraph. Priyavrat Maharaj had taken a vow of renunciation, but accepting a wife and begetting children have nothing to do with the path of renunciation. These are activities on the path of enjoyment. It was a source of great wonder, therefore, that Priyavrat Maharaj, who had followed the path of renunciation, had now accepted the path of enjoyment. Read the next paragraph.
Sometimes we are criticized because although I am a sannyasi, I have taken part in the marriage ceremonies of my disciples. It must be explained, however, that since we have started a Krishna conscious society, and since a human society must also have ideal marriages, to correctly establish an ideal society, we must take part in marrying some of its members although we have taken to the path of renunciation. This may be astonishing to persons who are not very interested in establishing Deva Varnashrama, the transcendental system of 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, however, wanted to re-establish Deva Varnashrama. In Deva Varnashrama, there cannot be acknowledgement of social status according to birthright, because in Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the determining considerations are guna and karma, one's qualities and work. It is this Daiva Varnashrama that should be established all over the world to continue a perfect society for Krishna consciousness. This may be astonishing to foolish critics, but it is one of the functions of a Krishna conscious society.
So Prabhupada is clarifying the criticism that people offered him for getting his disciples married. Twenty-fifth. The 10 sons of Maharaj Priyavrat were named Agnidhra, Idma Jiva, Yagyabahu, Mahavir, Hiranyareta, Ghrutaprushta, Savana, Medhatithi, Vitihotra, and Kavi. These are also names of Agni, the fire god. So these were 10 sons. 3 among these 10, namely Kavi, Mahavir, and Savana, lived in complete celibacy. Thus trained in brahmachari life from the beginning of childhood, they were very conversant with the highest perfection, known as the Paramhamsa Ashram. So if you see, Priyavrat was very clear about remaining brahmachari lifelong. So that desire remained aside. So his sons became brahmacharis, 3. So many times it is seen that the brahmacharis' fathers, they had some kind of desire to be brahmachari, something like that. They did not get proper guidance, but that remained aside. But the son became brahmachari. Though they may oppose, eventually if the son remains brahmachari for a long time, they may reveal later, beta, मैं भी सोच रहा था कि पहले at least after marrying your mother, I got that thought. If I only not married, I would have remained blissful. So the father's desire somehow it will come because he only does Garbhadan Sanskar. The son will pick it up. Okay, read the purport. It's talking about Urdhva Retasaha.
The word Urdhvaretasa in this verse is very significant. Urdhvareta refers to one who can control sex life and who, instead of wasting semen by discharging it, can use this most important substance accumulated in the body to enrich the brain. One who can completely control sex life is able to work wonderfully with his brain, especially in remembering. Thus, the students who simply hear Vedic instructions once from the teacher could remember them verbatim without need to read books, which therefore did not exist in former times.
Haribo. So beauty, glory of Urdhva Retasa. Those who don't waste semen downward, so it goes upward and nourishes the brain, and it develops aura. It gives him a lot of memory. He will not forget things. Kind of Shrutidhar. Next, he explains Arbha Bhavat, from very childhood, from being, from there you read. From being very affectionate to children.
From being very affectionate to children. In other words, Paramahansa life is dedicated for the benefit of others. Just as a father sacrifices many things out of affection for his son, great saintly persons sacrifice all kinds of bodily comforts for the benefit of human society.
And Prabhupada gives example of 6 Goswamis.
Yes.
Tyaktva turnamashesha mandalapati Shrenim sadatuchavad Bhutva dina ganesha karunaya Kaupina kanthashrito. That same principle, for the sake of others, they take up a simple life of austerities. Thus minimizing their bodily wants as far as possible, they each accepted only a loincloth and a begging bowl. Thus they remained in Vrindavan to execute the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by compiling and publishing various Vaishnava literatures. 27th translation. Thus situated in the renounced order from the beginning of their lives, all three of them completely controlled the activities of their senses and thus became great saints. They concentrated their minds always upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the resting place of the totality of living entities and who is therefore celebrated as Vasudeva. Lord Vasudeva is the only shelter of those who are actually afraid of material existence. By constantly thinking of his lotus feet, these three sons of Maharaj Priyavrat became advanced in pure devotional service. By the prowess of their devotional service, they could directly perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart as the Super Soul, and realize that there was qualitatively no difference between themselves and Him, means the Lord. So Jiva Goswami says the sons obtained similarity to the Lord. That means similar spiritual bodies. They obtained spiritual bodies, similarity to the Lord. Prabhupada in the purport talks about four levels of sannyas: Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivrajagacharya, and Paramhamsa. So Kutichak means he stays outside the village in kind of adjacent area, and there he gets food from home only. And Bahudak means he stops accepting from house. He's just coming out of Vanaprastha, so Kutichak is okay, understandable. He has made his kuti and he's getting food from home. But now Bahudak, Bahu, many, Udak. Huh? Tiffin box, yeah. Milton, in the Milton hot pot. Not so much like tiffin, but simple. Now he's renounced. You cannot get a hot pot and all that. That is only a brahmachari, not after Vanaprastha sannyas. He gets some foodstuffs. Wife will cook at home and will send through somebody. She will not come because he is a sannyasi now. And then Bahudak means he doesn't take from his house. Now he goes, begs from few houses and he takes that only. Parivrajagacharya, now he's not even going to few houses. Now he goes place to place. He leaves that place only. He keeps wandering and preaching. He's a Parivrajagacharya. And Paramhamsa is the highest stage. He's pure devotee. The Prabhupada also that going to place is a Madhukari, which literally means the profession of the bumblebees. They collect honey from many flowers, a little from each. So a sannyasi should beg from door to door, but not accept very much food from any particular house. He should collect a little bit from every house. This is called the Bahudak stage. So sometimes there may be some little opulent food he may get someplace, another place simple. Not that, oh, where is the feast cooked in which house? I will take prasad there today. He's not a sannyasi. He'll just go randomly, 3-4 houses, whatever is there, he gets finished. The sannyasi reaches the Paramhamsa stage when he finishes his preaching work and sits down in one place, strictly for the sake of advancing in spiritual life. An actual Paramhamsa is one who completely controls his senses and engages in the unalloyed service of the Lord. That is Paramhamsa. So these three sons, it is said, their senses could not disturb them, for their senses were completely engaged in serving the Lord. So this is the formula. If we want no sense disturbance, we should engage the senses in Lord's service. And if we are finding that some sense is disturbing us, that means that sense is not engaged in the service of the Lord. That's why it is a disturbance. Otherwise, it just can't be. No question. Absolutely no question. Therefore, the three brothers are described in this verse as Upashama Shilaha. Upashama means completely subdued. Because they completely subdued their senses, they are understood to have been great sages and saints. In the next paragraph towards the end, Prabhupada says, by Parama Bhakti Yoga, by elevating oneself to the highest platform of loving service, one can automatically be relieved from the bodily concept of life and see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaha Sadaiva Rudayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So Vishwanath Chakra Thakur in his commentary writes, in the Paramhamsa ashram, Tasmin, being free from perception of difference caused by covering of body, the sons realized oneness of the self, Tadatmyam, with the Lord, who is perceived, Adhigate, within the heart, purified, Paribhavita, by the power, Anubhavena, of Bhakti Yoga, which is fixed, Avigalita, in remembrance of the Lord's lotus feet. So Bhakti means what? Remembrance of the Lord's lotus feet. And that Bhakti Yoga gives the one power. And by that, his heart is purified. And heart is purified, one can perceive oneness of the self with the super self. We are one in quality only. I'm just part and parcel of the Lord. I should just serve him. That's all. Next 28 talks about his second wife. In his other wife, Maharaj Priyavrat begot 3 sons named Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata. All of them later took charge of Manvantara millenniums. Uttama became the 3rd Manu, Tamasa the 4th, and Raivata the 5th. How many Manus in one day of Brahma? 14. So here, who is the first Manu? Swayambhu Manu. Second, second is Chakshush, no? No, Chakshush is 6th. Second, I am not remembering. But 3rd, 4th, 5th are these 3 Priyavrat sons only. So they go on all the way to 5th Manvantar, and 6th Manvantar beginning, then Daksha comes. Uttanpa's dynasty, Pracheta's son, Daksha comes back after his austerity. So he takes over. But till then, these Manus are ruling over. Manus means sons of Priyavrat. The duration of one Manvantara, the lifespan of one Manu, is 71 yugas. So that calculation is given. Almost all the Manus selected to rule the Manvantaras came from the family of Maharaj Priyavrat. 3 of them are particularly mentioned here. 29th. After Kavi, Mahavir and Savana were completely trained in the Paramhamsa stage of life, Maharaj Priyavrat ruled a universe for 11 arbudas of years. Whenever he was determined to fix his arrow upon his bowstring with his 2 powerful arms, all opponents of the regulative principles of religious life would flee from his presence in fear of the unparalleled prowess he displayed in ruling the universe. He greatly loved his wife Bharishmati, and with the increase of days, their exchange of nuptial love also increased. By her feminine behavior, as she dressed herself, walked, got up, smiled, laughed, and glanced about, King Bharishmati increased his energy. Thus, although he was a great soul, he appeared lost in the feminine conduct of his wife. He behaved with her just like an ordinary man, but actually he was a great soul. So this verse and the next talks about 3 things, 3 opulences of King Priyavrat. So in this verse, 29th, 2 opulences are described. First is his prowess. Just by his before that also, okay, we'll discuss that. So first is his prowess. Just by his putting his arrow on the bowstring, people would be fearful and they would surrender to him. He did not even have to fight. They would be scared. They knew his unparalleled prowess. So that is the first opulence. And second opulence is his enjoyment with his wife. So all the details are coming here. How she was very special, very beautiful. Every act of hers was intoxicating to him. And it appeared that he lost himself in the feminine conduct, but he did not. He remained a great soul. And in the beginning of the translation, it is said that he ruled for 11 arbudas of years. So it's a very long, if you see the word meaning. Arbuda is equals 1 into 10 raised to 8. How much it comes in our Indian language of mathematics? Counting. Hmm? 10 crore. Yes. So imagine how long they rule. So these are all unimaginable figures. Huh? 110 crore. So ek arbud is 10 crore. So like that he ruled for 11 arbudas. That means 110 crores. Haribo. We don't even know the history of some 1 crore years also. He himself lived for 110 crores. There is a slide that will come to the calculations of the two acharyas. Sridhar Swami says it means 100 million, whereas Jiva Goswami says it means 10 million. So we'll see that calculation little later after reading this purport. So Prabhupada talks about the four Varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Read from that middle of the paragraph. From this verse,
From this verse, Maharaj Priyavrata appears to have been so strict in maintaining this institution of Varnashrama Dharma that anyone neglecting it would immediately flee from his presence as soon as the king warned him by fighting or administering light punishment. Indeed, Maharaj Priyavrata would not have to fight, for simply because of his strong determination, they dared not disobey the rules and regulations of Varnashrama Dharma. It is said that unless human society is regulated by Varnashrama Dharma, it is no better than a bestial society of cats and dogs. Maharaj Priyavrata therefore strictly maintained Varnashrama Dharma by his extraordinary unparalleled powers.
next, here Hari Gaurang Prabhu for furthermore discussion about it. Acha, you want to read? No, he will read you here. The next paragraph. Yes.
To maintain such a life of a strict vigilance, needs encouragement from his wife. In the Varnashrama Dharma system, certain classes such as the Brahmanas and Sannyasi do not need encouragement from the opposite sex. Kshatriyas and the Grihasthas, however, actually need the encouragement of their wives in order to execute their duties. Indeed, a Grihastha or a Kshatriya cannot properly execute his responsibilities without the association of his wife. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally admitted that a Grihastha must live with a wife. Kshatriyas were even allowed to have many wives to encourage them in discharging the duties of government.
So clear, na? Why wife? For encouragement. And Kshatriyas, many wives, unlimited encouragement, unlimited wives. Next.
The association of a good wife is necessary in life of karma and political affairs to execute his duties properly. Therefore, Maharaj Priyavrata took advantage of his good wife Bharishmati, who was always very expert in pleasing her great husband by properly dressing herself, smiling, and exhibiting her feminine bodily features. Queen Bharishmati always kept Maharaj Priyavrata very encouraged, and thus he executed his governmental duty very properly. In this verse, Iva has twice been used to indicate that Maharaj Priyavrata acted exactly like a handpicked husband and thereby seemed to have lost his sense of human responsibility. Actually, however, he was fully conscious of his position as a spirit soul, although he seemingly behaved like an quiescent Karmi husband. Maharaj Priyavrata thus ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. One arbuda consists of 10 crore years, and Maharaj Priyavrata ruled the universe for 11 such arbudas.
Okay. So Sridhar Swami says one arbud is 100 million, and Jiva Goswami says it means 10 million years. So Srila Jiva Goswami has given calculation ahead, it seems. Okay, Jiva Goswami has given his comment. 1 minute. Just to prove this Jiva Goswami statement, it's very huge calculation. If you are ready for it, even if you are not ready, just here. Shata means 100, Sahasra means 1000, Ayuta means 10,000, Laksha means 100,000, Niyuta is 1,000,000. Then Koti or Arbuda is 10,000,000. Nyarbuda, after Arbuda comes Nyarbuda, add one more zero, so 100,000,000 or 100 million you can say. Padma 1,000 million. Khava is 10,000 million or 10 billion you can say. Nikharva is 100 billion. Mahabja is 1,000 billion or a trillion, 1 trillion. Then there is Shankhu, which is 10 trillion. Then Samudra, 100 trillion. Ante is 1,000 trillion. And then Madhya is 10,000 trillion. Parardha is 1 lakh trillion. So one Parabdha is into one Parabdha is equal to 1 Asankhya. So like that he has given a big calculation. And he said Arbud and Koti are also the same meaning. These numbers are also found in the Vedas. So he has given a lot of calculation like that. I think for us it is sufficient to say it's a very huge number. Beyond our imagination. And that too, he did not rule for 1 Arbud, but rather 11 Arbud years. So it's a huge life. Okay, so we'll break for the period and we'll gather at after 10 minutes. Hare Krishna. Which was the last verse? 29. Okay, 38. While so excellently ruling the universe, King Priyavrat once became dissatisfied with the circumambulation of the most powerful sun god. Encircling Sumeru hill on his chariot, the sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. However, when the sun is on the northern side of the hill, the south receives less light, and when the sun is in the south, the north receives less. King Priyavrat disliked this situation and therefore decided to make daylight in the part of the universe where there was night. He followed the orbit of the sun god on a brilliant chariot and thus fulfilled his desire. He could perform such wonderful activities because of the power he had achieved by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So his third opulence is described here. I told earlier 3 opulences, I think Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. First, that means that earlier 29th verse described his prowess, then his enjoyment with his wife, and third is being discussed here, that is influence. What was his influence? So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, encircling Sumeru hill on his chariot, the sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. Up to what point? Sun illuminates up to? Lokalok mountains. Lokalok mountains are very high. So beyond that, sunlight cannot go. Then he followed the orbit of the sun god, not to compete with the sun, but to give happiness to the inhabitants of planet Earth. So that was not to compete. That should be understood. And also Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says he followed the movement of the sun 7 times. That's how? What happened? Huh? Ah, 7 days, 7 times. So what happened by that? 7 islands were created, no? Every time the rim of his wheel of the chariot went around, he went behind sun, but then by that one island was created, and next time the next. So whole of Bhumandal got that what you call kind of trench, and which eventually got filled with 7 different varieties of oceans, and that's how the protection was given to the inhabitants of each island from the other islands. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives all these details that he followed the movement of the sun 7 times. Read the purport. Raghu Krupa Prabhu. Behind you is the
There is a Bengali saying which describes that someone is so powerful that he can make the night day and the day night.
in Hindi also we have, isn't it? Din ka raat or raat ka din kar dena. In Bengali also something similar is there.
That saying is current because of the prowess of Privrat. His activities demonstrate how powerful he became by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna is known as Yogeshwar, the master of all mystic powers. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, wherever there is a master of all mystic powers, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, victory, fortune, and all other opulences are present. Devotional service is so powerful. When a devotee achieves what he wants to accomplish, it is not by his own mystic power, but by the grace of the master of mystic power, Lord Krishna. By his grace, a devotee can accomplish wonderful things unimaginable even to the most powerful scientist.
So Prabhupada got Chaitanya Charitamrita printed in just 2 months. Unimaginable thing, not just was made to be imagined by others, but Prabhupada made it happen. His disciples made it happen because they had faith in Prabhupada's faith. Yes, ahead.
From the description in this verse, it appears that the sun moves. According to modern astronomers, the sun is fixed in one place, surrounded by the solar system. But here we find that the sun is not stationary. It is rotating in a prescribed orbit. This fact is corroborated by Brahma Samhita. Yasyagnyasya brahmati sambratakala chakra. The sun is rotating in its fixed orbit in accordance with the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Jyotirveda, the science of astronomy in the Vedic literature, the sun moves for 6 months on the northern side of the Sumeru hill and for 6 months on the southern side. We have practical experience on this planet that when there is summer in the north, there is winter in the south and vice versa. Modern materialistic scientists sometimes present themselves as knowing all the ingredients of the sun, yet they are unable to offer a second sun like Maharaj Priyavatas.
Is it true? You experience when there is summer in the north, winter in the south? Just don't restrict yourself to India only. To see on broader scale. How? Sun goes to north, then the north direction experiences summer, and this side they experience kind of winter. Ahead.
Although Maharaj Priyavrat devised a very powerful chariot as brilliant as the sun, he had no desire to compete with the sun god, for a Vaishnava never wants to supersede another Vaishnava. His purpose was to give abundant benefits in material existence. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that in the months of April and May, the rays of Maharaj Priyavata's brilliant sun were as pleasing as the rays of the moon. And in October and November, both morning and evening, that sun provided more warmth than the sunshine. In short, Maharaj Priyavata was extremely powerful, and his actions extended his power in all directions.
So he says a Vaishnava never wants to supersede another Vaishnava. How many of you see that contamination is there in me? I want to supersede some Vaishnava. Even he is my level. Let us supersede. How many of you? Raghu doesn't have. He's thinking name. But because everybody raised hand, he also raised. Otherwise, he doesn't have that contamination. He never wants to supersede others. There's nobody to supersede already. So, it's very great people, there is no question of superseding. They are too high. And those who are below, they are below. Only those amongst us, if we find out some similarities there, अरे he Prabhu is also like me. And okay, चलो थोड़ा सा, है कि नहीं? थोड़ा सा next gear डाल देते हैं. So that is a contamination. Here, Priyavrat Maharaj is not desiring to supersede other Vaishnavas. What was that? In one of the marathons, it seems. I think His Grace Shamanand Prabhu told His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj that Maharaj, we want to come first. We want to come first in the next marathon, or this marathon, like that. Maharaj said we should desire that we want to distribute 1 lakh books, something like that. He said those days it was less than 1 lakh, and come first, like that. So Maharaj said we should desire that we distribute 1 lakh books, and then other distribute more than us by taking this inspiration that they are distributing 1 lakh, no? And thus we should be the last, like that. So not that we want to be first. So for that reason we want to distribute 1 lakh books. No, let others do more than us. There is one more detail which Vishnu Chakra Thakur tells in his commentary about this verse. I'll read it. Or this is by, 1 minute, I'll have to see who is this, Jiva Goswami or Vishnu Chakra Thakur. About this verse, Jiva Goswami says in Krama Sandarbha, he wanted the citizens to be happy. He did not want to compete with the sun. And an additional sentence is sometimes seen. And he's quoting that Evam, some shloka. He gave up this action when Brahma came and told him that he was not qualified for this action. He went on. It seemed like he would have gone. But Brahma came and said, no, you are not qualified for this action. So you stop. So he stopped. But by that time, 7 times had already happened. And that's how the continents are, or the islands are already created. So that is one detail. And then apart from that, one more minute. And Vishnu Chakra Thakur writes, by the worship of the Lord, King Priyavrat surpassed all humans in influence. Discontent with half the earth's surface being covered by darkness, he followed the movement of the sun so that when the sun set, he would light up that area. He followed the sun not to compete with the sun, but to give happiness to the inhabitants of earth. Because of this arrangement also, in months like Jeshta, hot months, the sun made by Priyavrat was cooler than the moon, and in cool months like Margashish, cold months, the sun made by Priyavrat was warmer than the other sun at dawn and dusk. This means that by the power of yoga of sages like Sobari, Priyavrat had two bodies, one as the king and one as the sun. This second son is Priyavrat only. His expansion, two bodies. One was ruling the king as the king, and the second was in the form of sun, like that. Basically, he created the sun, how it was very beneficial. Even in the months like Jest, when it is very hot. So this sun was cooling. And in the months like Margashish, which is very cold, this sun was warmer than the other sun in the daytime, at the dawn, at the time of dusk, etc. And this last line says, this means that by the power of yoga of sages like Sobari, the sages Sobari, he married how many wives? And how did he enjoy with them? By expanding into 50 forms. Otherwise, it would have been disturbance. So like that, Priyavrata also, he also had two bodies, one as the king and one as the sun. This is Vishnu Chakri Thakur's comment. These are all great personalities. Everything is possible for them.
Guruji, I have
31st.
a question.
Okay, yes.
And this, like, generally we see that in material world, whatever Krishna has created, we say is Purnam. So then why did Priyavrat Maharaj felt the need of having this? And after now also there is no such situation like that. Now also again only one son is there, and so then what was the need and what was the exactly
As
idea?
I see that, these are all Lord's pastimes through using his devotees. Just like otherwise, how would the 7 islands would come? After 7 islands were created, then Brahma came. Why didn't Brahma come after 1 or 2 islands only were created? Because Lord wants 7 islands to be there. Kraunchadweep, Plakshadweep, Shalmali Dweep, Jambu Dweep. So all that were created. And then comes Brahma, says, enough, there is no need for you to do like this. Though he was not doing for competing, he felt that why should the other part be suffering? These are all the feelings of the devotees are all as per the Lord's desire. Lord wants this 7 continent and he will give the Shreya, the credit to devotees. Similarly, Arjuna also fighting. Lord wants to give him the credit. Nimitta matra bhava savyasachi. Lord can alone in the form of time, he says, anyway, I have killed them. Nobody is required for Lord to do all these things. But because devotees have such desire, Lord wants to engage them and they get the credit by the Lord's mercy. They don't want credit, but Lord wants to give them credit. So the universe is not just created by the Lord alone. He engages Brahma, then eventually he engages all the demigods and even his pure devotees also. Even in the part like creation also, they will be there. And in maintenance also, they will be there. Dharma sthapan hetu, sadhur vyavar. They will establish a religion through their behavior. And in destruction also, there is Sankarshan, there are Rudras, Shiva. So everywhere Lord will engage his devotees. That's how I see. I don't know exactly what acharyas have commented. Here, at least there is no comment like that. But he felt. Are you satisfied or you want something more? Or if you have also something, you may add in.
No. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Lord wants 100 villages preaching should go on. So some desire comes in the heart of His grace, Sripad Mahaprabhu Prabhu. So though we have not crossed 50, I think, but Lord has some plan. Exactly.
Mercy of devotees not crossed on 10 also, not 50.
Whatever. I took big number, which surely is not crossed yet. So okay, chalo, 10 is not crossed, but Lord has desire 100. Why 100 villages? Prithvite ache yata. Yata means whatever, whichever village is there on earth, sarvatra prachar hoibe more naam. So for 100, a big chunk number, he has chosen you. Like that. So good. So that desire comes. Similarly for Archa Vigraha also it is said, installation. The first installation is the desire in the heart of a pure devotee. Let there be deity. Temple cannot be just a beautiful structure with nobody in the altar. That is not a temple at all. Deities are there, that makes temple. So first point of installation is the desire in the heart of pure devotee. How does that desire come there? By the Lord's desire. The Lord wants to appear in this world, and pure devotees desire. They want to fulfill the desires of the Lord. So they desire, let there be a beautiful temple here. So the desire comes. And then so many things happen. So installation is in several phases. It continuously keeps on happening. And after installation is also officially over, then also devotees, when they feed and they dress the Lord, they perform arti, then also installation continues. Lord reciprocates. So it's a continuous devotional service is dynamic. It is not just once done, finished. It's continuous. Okay, 31st. When Priyavrat drove his chariot behind the sun, the rims of his chariot wheels created impressions that later became 7 oceans, dividing the planetary system known as Bhumandala into 7 islands. Prabhupada says in purport, sometimes the planets in outer space are called islands. And in Gayatri Mantra we have Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Tat Savitur Varanyam. So sunlight goes in 3 planetary systems. Above the Bhulok planetary system is Bhuvarlok, and above that is Swargalok, the heavenly planetary system. All these planetary systems are controlled by Savita. By chanting the Gayatri Mantra just after rising early in the morning, one worships the sun god. So sun god Surya Narayan illuminates Bhurlok, Bhuvarlok, Swargalok. That's why Om Bhu Bhuvaha Swaha. Bhurlok, Bhuvarlok, Swargalok. Tat Savitur Varanyam. By the sunlight gets illuminated. And there are other ways of illumination in our upper planetary system like Janalok, Tapalok, Maharlok, Satyalok. And lower planetary systems have cobras with very shining jewels, diamonds on their foreheads, on their heads. So Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasada, Patal are illuminated in different ways. But at least for these 3, sun is there to illuminate Bhulok, Bhuvarlok, and Swargalok. So we worship sun god by chanting Gayatri Mantra. We can also do Surya Namaskar. That is also recommended. Om Mitraya Namah. Om Ram Mitraya Namah. Okay, 32nd. The names of the islands are Jambu. So this is 1 by 1, 7 islands. The middle one is Jambu, Plaksha, Shalmali, Kusha, Krauncha, Shaka, and Pushkara. Each island is twice as large as the one preceding it, and each is surrounded by a liquid substance beyond which is the next island. So the breadth of the island and the ocean is the same, but not the length. Length and breadth. So you have this thing, pains you have, Prabhu? Pains? What's Prabhu's name? Pain, what do you call this? Whiteboard marker? Do you have one at least? Achha, it is there. Huh? But the middle one, Jambu Dweep, it is, I think calculation is given. How many yojanas? Whatever. 1,000 yojana, 1 lakh yojanas. One. That is coming in the next purport anyway. But you all know how it is, you know. So the middle one is Jambu Dweep. So whatever is its this breadth, so that will be the same with the outer ocean. Which is the ocean? Saltwater ocean. So breadth remains the same, but now this is the length of Jambu Dweep. So outer one will have longer length or shorter length or the same length? Longer length. So that's how the length of the ocean adjacent to it is more, but the breadth, breadth is the same. Now next one will be the double of Jambu Dweep. Seems Plaksha Dweep is the next. So if this one is, let's say, 1 lakh yojanas, so next one will be in breadth, it will be 2 lakh yojanas. But again, notion. Yeah, see the picture. Whatever this now this, whatever you call it, what you call it, right? So now next has to be double. And whatever is spread, the same for the salt ocean, or the next ocean also. So this remains the same. This is Jambudvip. This is like Lakshadweep. So this is salt water ocean. So this will remain the same, but this obviously will be longer. This length, whatever the length this will be longer than that. And like that, then this will become double now. Something like this. Next week. And similarly, the ocean surrounding it of the same breadth. This will be how much? 4b. This also. But the next will be 8b. So that will be. So this cannot come here only. We all seen that. Same. But the length cannot be same because obviously it is outside of it. So afterwards 12 o'clock. ठीक है चलो. So where were we? 32. The islands were described. So double. Each island is twice as large. So I'm calling it as breadth. It's twice as large as the one preceding it, and each is surrounded by a liquid substance beyond which is the next island. So I already saw. So Lakshadweep. Then next is, since these are in sequence only, Shalmali. So that will be double of Lakshadweep's breadth. Kushadweep will be double of Shalmali Dweep's breadth. In the purport, the ocean in each planetary system has a different type of liquid. How they are situated is explained in the next verse, 33rd. The 7 oceans respectively contain salt water, sugarcane juice, liquor, clarified butter, milk, emulsified yogurt, and sweet drinking water. All the islands are completely surrounded by these oceans, and each ocean is equal in breadth to the island it surrounds. So breadth only word is the word used. So that is correct. Maharaj Priyavrat, the husband of Queen Barhishmati, gave sovereignty over these islands to his respective sons, namely Agnidhra, Idma Jiva, Yagyabahu, Hiranyareta, Ghrutaprushta, Medhatiti, and Vitihotra. How many sons he had? From 10 he had. 3 became sannyasis. So 7 remained. So 7 each island for 1 son. And like that, 7 islands, 7 sons. Thus they all became kings by the order of their father. You may read the purport. I think the details are coming there. One mic is here. Other I don't know.
It is to be understood that all the dvipas or islands are surrounded by the different type of oceans, and it is said herein that the breadth of each ocean is the same as that of the island it surrounds.
Island. S is silent.
Island it surrounds. The length of the oceans, however, cannot equal to the length of the islands. According to Viraragavacharya, the breadth of the first island is 1 lakh yojanas. 1 yojana equals 8 miles, and therefore the breadth of the first island is calculated to be 8 lakh miles. The water surrounding it must have the same breadth, but its length must be different.
So how every time he must have used chariots, huh? That by which exactly concentric circular trench is formed, isn't it? That's why he must have used different chariots of different sizes. That's how it can be so concentric, and that only he knows. Don't worry.
Guruji, one more inquisitiveness. Like,
Yes.
how this all these oceans, is there any mention how this all liquids came there?
I don't know. Simple answer. And I'm ready to hear anyone who knows, in case you know. Some Puranas it might be described like about this Arbuda or somewhere the description comes or the Priyavrat Maharaj something only comes in Vishnu Puran. One of the Acharya Jiva Goswami or Vishnu Chakra Thakur comments from there. So likewise some Puran somewhere it might be described. Each of these strange, how was it filled with whatever yogurt or milk or ghee, liquor. Some description must be there somewhere. At least here it doesn't come. You can find out. Isn't it? Or all the 100 villages, villages can be given the project. Find out. one Puran can be given. Is that okay, bro?
Yes, bro.
Sorry, bro. In case, I hope you don't feel bad. But this is the what you call all in-depth study we all have to do. I don't know whether any ISKCON devotee has found out where from the water came or water means that liquid came there. Might be known to SAC members in case they know. Some Acharya Jiva Goswami, I read it is not there, I think. I don't know whether I have not read. Some description is there by outside of each ocean is a continent, and outside each continent is another ocean. Within the ocean of churned yogurt is a continent of equal breadth to the ocean. Similarly, the other oceans and continents have equal breadth. Outside each continent is another ocean. They are not limited by being inside the continent, but are rather outside of each successive continent. So this is by one Acharya. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur saying that. And Jiva Goswami, you have na Jiva Goswami's commentary? Sanskrit. Whatever this 32, 33, whatever he speaks. Huh? Take the mic, no? As per the desire. According to his desire. Each chariot had one wheel with a size according to his desire. Where is he? And exactly he's gone out. No, not our Sudhamanath Prabhu. So he's saying, this is Krama Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami in the verse 31st. Each chariot had one wheel with a size according to his desire. So that means every time he used different chariot, and each chariot had one wheel only. Now don't ask how the one wheel was able to rotate. Just like our sun god also, he goes on chariot which has one wheel only, and it has axle. The middle of the axle is on the middle of Sumeru Parvat, and the next is on this middle of this wheel, and the wheel rotates on Manasottar mountain. So like that, and while moving also it is moves in such a way that it sometimes comes closer, descend that end, and that's how the this also seasons also happen. So it's very complex way of working. But for them, it's very natural, normal. Arun is his chariot, isn't it? So Arun, how he drives it amazingly. The sun god also, and another invisible axle goes, touching where? Huh? Pole star. That is invisible axle. So how it works, it's very amazing. So each chariot had one wheel with a size according to his desire. So that is in 31st. 32nd, he says, each successive island was bigger by his desire, and each ocean as well. So his desire grew big maybe, and then he had a bigger chariot. Bigger chariot means the wheel was farther away from the center. And the next trench was formed. And we read, got answer for your question, but you are not here. Ask others later on. According to his desire, the chariot wheels, where the chariot had one wheel only, and according to his desire. So the desire kept on increasing, so it seems like that. Okay, 33rd also we saw, no? Here for our Sripad Mahaprabhu, one line by Srila Jiva Goswami in Krama Sandarbha. The intervening spaces were filled with the desired liquids. One line answer. Now, beyond this, we cannot say. Acharya has said this. The intervening spaces were filled with the desired liquids. He desired this liquid should get filled in this trench of the formed by the rim of the chariot. So it got filled. Now all the details we don't know. Yeah. And it is ultimately Lord's desire. So like that. Okay. 34th. King Priyavrat then gave his daughter Urjaswati in marriage to Shukracharya, who begot in her a daughter named Devayani. So we all know famous Devayani. Got married to Yayati. And another wife is Sharmishta. She was daughter of one person, one king, Rushaparva, isn't it? So, and we know the story, how they both fought, and then she was made maid servant. But then once he united with her also, then Devayani left to father, complained, father came, you will lose your potency and all that stuff. So she is daughter of whose daughter? Shukracharya's daughter is Devayani, and Shukracharya's wife is daughter of Priyavrat. So you can remember the connection when we get into that story, like that. Though by then we may forget, but little bit. So Shukracharya married with Urjaswati, the daughter of Priyavrat, and from them came their daughter Devayani. 35th. My dear king, a devotee who has taken shelter of the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord can transcend the influence of the 6 material whips, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. And he can conquer the mind and 5 senses. However, this is not very wonderful for a pure devotee of the Lord, because even a person beyond the jurisdiction of the 4 castes, in other words, an untouchable, is immediately relieved of bondage to material existence if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So what glorification of the holy name. Yan Nam Dheyam Aduna Sajahati Bandham. Vidura Vigataha. The 5th grade person. Vidur, बहुत दूर गया है. Vigataha. But Sakrudad Adita, Sakrut Adadita, even once he chants, even untouchable. So there is nothing wonderful. The devotee gets rid of Shadagunanam, 6 whips of Maya, hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age. Read the purport, old age and death.
Sukdev Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit about the activities of King Priyavrat. And since the king might have had doubts about these wonderful, uncommon activities, Sukdev Goswami reassured him. My dear king, he said, don't be doubtful about the wonderful activities of Priyavrat. For a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is possible because the Lord is also known as Urukrama. Urukrama is the name of Lord Vaman.
So you got the point. All of us are also surprised, no? Wondering, what is like unimaginable thing. So how Parikshit Maharaj is also is wondering. So that's why Shukdev Goswami is clarifying. And this is not great. Even untouchable beyond Shudra also, he can once chant the holy name and be relieved of the bondage to material existence. So what to speak of a very advanced devotee who has overcome the all these whips of Maya. So no wonder. So about Vaman Dev something, Chalayasi Vikramani, that is quoted from Jaydev Goswami's Dashauta Stotra. Next paragraph, Prabhupada says, since the Supreme Lord is all powerful, he can do things that seem wonderful for a common man. Similarly, a devotee who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord can also do wonderful things unimaginable to a common man by the grace of the dust of those lotus feet. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore teaches us to take shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. The devotees are wonderfully empowered. So in the next paragraph, Shadguna, 6 whips are described. Furthermore, another Shadguna are the mind and 5 sense organs. Not to speak of a sanctified devotee, even a Chandala, an outcast who is untouchable, is immediately freed from material bondage if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. Sometimes caste Brahmanas argue that unless one changes his body, he cannot be accepted as a Brahman. For since the present body is obtained as a result of past action, one who has in the past acted as a Brahman takes birth in a Brahman family. Therefore, they contend, without such a Brahmanical body, one cannot be accepted as a Brahman. Herein it is said, however, that even Vidura Vigata, a Chandala, a 5th class untouchable, is freed if he utters the holy name even once. Being freed means that he immediately changes his body. And then Yatha Kanchanatam Yati, that's famous sloka by Sanatana Goswami, which Prabhupada often quotes. When a person, even though a Chandal, is initiated by a pure devotee into chanting the holy name of the Lord, his body changes as he follows the instructions of the spiritual master. Although one cannot see how his body has changed, we must accept, on the grounds of the authoritative statements of the Shastras, that he changes his body. This is to be understood without arguments. This verse clearly says, Sajahati Bandham. He gives up his material bondage. The body is a symbolic representation of material bondage according to one's karma. Although sometimes we cannot see the gross body changing, chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord immediately changes the subtle body. Gross body of the devotee may not be seen changing, but his subtle body is definitely changing. And because the subtle body changes, the living entity is immediately freed from material bondage. After all, changes of the gross body are conducted by the subtle body. After the destruction of the gross body, the subtle body takes the living entity from his present gross body to another. In the subtle body, the mind is predominant. And therefore, if one's mind is always absorbed in remembering the activities or the lotus feet of the Lord, he is to be understood to have already changed his present body and become purified. Therefore, it is irrefutable that a Chandal or any fallen or low-born person can become a Brahman simply by the method of bona fide initiation. That's how we should not commit offenses to devotee, knowing the potency of devotional service, how powerful it is. We may not be able to see a outer change in a devotee's body, gross body, but the subtle body is continuously changing. For grahasthas, they see brahmacharis in saffron, they may respect because clear cut different gross body, shaved head, saffron, and many other things like that. But amongst ourselves, we may say, all are saffron, so what? And we are seeing the same. At least grahasthas happen to see brahmacharis once in a while. We happen to see each other all the time. So, he is the same fellow. So we should not have that kind of approach. We should know his subtle body is changing. Every time he chants, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We are not able to perceive the change, but it is happening, as it is very clearly said here. Okay, that is 35th. About which what our acharyas are saying. Jiva Goswami doesn't say anything. That 35th, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has something to say. I'll just read it out. His translation here is, such power is not surprising from persons who have conquered the six senses by the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord, since even an outcast becomes immediately free of bondage of karma by chanting the Lord's name once. Purport. Such prowess or influence is not surprising for those who conquer the six senses, hard to conquer, by the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord. Rajasa also means Rajoguna. Thus there is Virodha Loka or something, ornament introducing contradiction. Even the outcast at the moment uttering the name of the Lord gives up bondage. Alternate versions accepted by Sridhar Swami are Tanvam and Tatvam instead of Bandham. Bandham means the bondage of karma. Tanvam means the body. However, one does not see a person immediately give up his body on chanting once. Thus, the sentence means that the karmas that are experienced in the body are destroyed. Tattvam means that the elements from the Mahat Tattva to earth, the gross and subtle bodies of the jiva, are destroyed. But the body remains by the inconceivable influence of the name of the Lord, since there is no alternative. So the Mahat Tattva to earth, all the elements are step by step destroyed. So subtle body destroyed, and then gross body also, but the gross body remains, he says. Body remains by the inconceivable influence of the name of the Lord, since there is no alternative, because he has to remain in the body for the further services. So by the inconceivable influence of the holy name, body remains, gross body. But the subtle body is Mahat Tattva to earth, all changes are happening. So amazing. How powerful are the glories of the holy name. So he described Tanvam Tattvam of Sridhar Swami, and otherwise the bondage of the karma is at least destroyed. Bondage is destroyed, but then the body is also destroyed. But because the body is visible, that means it is only the influence of the holy name. Okay, next 36 to 41 is Priyavat's repentance and renunciation. And this is till the end of the chapter and concludes the chapter also. So Priyavat's repentance and renunciation from 36 to 41. 30. Huh? Yes. Similarly, Lord Kapila also says, Jarayati Ashu Ya Kosham Nigaranam Nigiranam Anoloyatha. Yes. Jarayati Ashu Ya Kosham. This kosh, subtle body kosh, Jarayati, is destroyed. Jara, old age like body is destroyed. So Jarayati Ashu Ya Kosham Nigarnam Anoloyatha. Nigiranam. Just like fire, it while burning the wood, it consumes the wood only. The wood no longer remains. So that is the power. The fire comes from the wood only and destroys the wood only. From the mind only, devotee will think of Krishna, and by thinking of Krishna, the mind only will be, subtle body only will be destroyed. purified, gone. So devotional stage is very powerful. Any other? Okay, then 36th verse. While enjoying his material opulences with full strength and influence, Maharaj Priyavrat once began to consider that although he had fully surrendered to the great saint Narada and was actually on the path of Krishna consciousness, he had somehow become again entangled in material activities. Thus, his mind now became restless and he began to speak in a spirit of renunciation. So, you see how by the Lord's grace it is said once, Ekada. So evam aparimita bala parakram. Aparimit, it's like unimaginable, unparalleled bala parakram. Yes, strength as well as the influence. But ekada tu, but once. So how does this happen? Devarshi charananushayanam. So by the mercy of the Lord only. Because he was blessed by Brahmaji. Don't worry, you will not get carried away. You will achieve the Lord, even though you enter in royal duties and family life. So Prabhupada quotes Tyaktva Swadharmam Charanambujam Harer Bhajanna Pakvo Atapate Tato Yadi Yatra Kvava Bhadram Abud Amushakim Vartha Apto Abhajatam Swadharmataha. One who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage. Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. Read the purport ahead.
If one somehow or other comes to the shelter of a great Vaishnava, takes to Krishna consciousness because of sentiment or realization, but in course of time falls down because of immature understanding, he is not actually fallen.
So you understood? Because of what? How many reasons?
Immature.
Two. One is because of
Mature understanding.
immature understanding. Or sentiment word was used, no? Where is it?
Because of sentiment and
But in
realization.
where is it? Shelter of a great Vaishnava takes to because of sentiment or realization. So some people maybe just on mental platform, they may say, "Arey, this is so much dancing is so nice," or this temple is so beautiful. People here are so young people. So his realization is not there. He has no bhakti in previous lives, or not so much at least. So he just came out of sentiment, and somebody else out of realization. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Whatever may be the reason, but he has come to the Lord. So he may take to devotional service because of the two, and then he may fall also. But then read ahead.
He is not actually fallen. For his having engaged in the Krishna consciousness is a permanent asset. If one falls down, therefore, his progress might be checked for a certain time, but it will again become manifest at an opportune moment. Although Priyavrata Maharaj was serving according to the instructions of Narada Muni meant for going back home, back to Godhead, he returned to material affairs at the request of his father. In due course of time, however, his consciousness for serving Krishna reawakened by the grace of his spiritual master Narada.
See, Narad Muni also must be thinking, na, my dear Priyavrat. He's going on and on and on. And lot is done now as per the Lord's desire and Brahmaji's order. Everything is done. So now he should return. So as pure devotees pray for us, immediately some magic will happen. Some renunciation will develop. This is the beauty of working under superiors. They are overseeing. Even if one apparently appears to go off track, they are there to protect him. They'll pray to the Lord. Like we know this person, Nath Muni's grandson, Yamuna. Yamuna was in that Guru's Gurukul, and then Guru owed some debt, and then he debated with the Cholatunga. That was the name of the minister, that Pandit, and he defeated him, and he got half the kingdom. By getting the kingdom, he got carried away because so many queens to enjoy, so much money, opulence, and all that. But his grandfather, Nath Muni, was praying, "Oh, my grandson, he had been sent to Gurukul, to become learned in the scriptures and lead as a Vaishnav, lifestyle as a Vaishnav, and he's fit to be Acharya also. What is this? So he gave the service to his disciple. Name was Ram Mishra. Ram Mishra. And then he comes. By that time, his grandfather is no more. After giving this instruction, he leaves body. But Ram Mishra comes and every day provides one very special shak, Tuduvalai. Every day that is given to the cook cooks it and gives to King Yamuna, and he's relishing it. But purposefully one day, he does not provide. Then king asks the cook, where is that Tuduvalai? Oh, I don't know. You don't know, but every day you are giving me. One particular gentleman was coming and he would give and say, this you give to king. This is very helpful for his good health, strength, etc. So he was giving. So really, he has not come today. Okay, next time when he comes, please bring him to me. And next day immediately he comes and he's brought in front of King Yamuna. And then he says, your grandfather has left behind a huge asset for you. Oh, really? Let's go. So no, but and then it is surrounded by a lot of protection is there. Okay, we'll go with all the soldiers. No, you alone have to come. Like that, I will take you there. And king thinks, why not? So much opulence is there. Then he goes behind, and on the way, what does Ram Mishra do? He recites Bhagavad Gita shlokas, one after the other. He knows all the shlokas. And when he comes to which shloka? One particular shloka. So there, by then, because they're walking and they're hearing, he's hearing Yamuna. So then he remembers his childhood devotional service. That only, sure, no? Mayyeva Manadasya. So when he comes to by that time, that is which one? 9th chapter or 18th? Mayyeva Manadasya, sorry, 12.8. So then 11 chapters he has heard, 12th chapter, and that was like super convincing. Then he surrenders to Ram Mishra and then he becomes famous Yamunacharya. Ramanacharya is one of the gurus. So even if one gets apparently carried away by the blessings, by the desire of the great souls, one will come back. One will. That's why we should not, when somebody is empowered like that, we should not see fault. Apparently, if they appear to be gone off track. Teji asamna doshaya. One should not see faults, flaws in great personalities. They're special always. Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe Prabhupada quotes how even a fallen yogi, Yoga Prashta, he will be born in rich families or purified families like Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. After having described the material opulences of Maharaj Priyavrat, Shukdev Goswami in this verse describes his tendency for renunciation. Devarshi Charananu Shayana. You can read that.
The verse Devarsi Charnanusayan indicates that Maharaj Priyavrat, having fully surrendered to the great sage Devarsi Narad, was strictly following all the devotional processes and regulative principles under his direction. In regard to strictly following the regulative principles, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Dandavat Pranamas Tan Anupatita. By immediately offering obeisances Dandavat unto the spiritual master and by strictly following directions, the student becomes advanced. Maharaj Priyavrat was doing all these things regularly. As long as one is in the material world, he has to be under the influence of the three modes of material nature. It is not that Maharaj Priyavrat was freed from the material influence because he possessed all material opulences. In this material world, both the very poor man and the very rich man are under material influences, for both wealth and poverty are creations of the modes of material nature. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.27, Prakriti Kriya Manani Gunai Karmani Sarvasa. According to the modes of material nature we acquire, the material nature gives us the facility for material enjoyment.
Yes. So earlier paragraph Prabhupada says, by immediately offering obeisances, Dandavat, unto the spiritual master and by strictly following his directions, the student becomes advanced. That's how we always, when we see spiritual master, we offer Ashtang Pranam at least first time and throughout day Panchang Pranam. Immediately one should offer obeisances. And then apart from that, follow his instructions strictly. Then one will be helped. Then here, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, his translation is Priyavrat of unlimited power and prowess. Once began to consider himself dissatisfied because of contact with materialism from ruling the kingdom. After having surrendered to the feet of Narada, he became disgusted with his situation. He then spoke. Purport, he says, this verse shows his withdrawal from material enjoyment and the increase in strength of renunciation. He appeared to get no satisfaction from contact with the material world after having surrendered to the feet of Narada, offering respects to him as Guru, Anushayana. Even though he felt inner bliss, since he was unattached to ruling the kingdom, he felt disgust with the kingdom. That is the significance of the word eva. So internally he was having the bliss, but even externally he developed disgust and he left it also. Then 37th. The king thus began criticizing himself. Alas, how condemned I have become because of my sense gratification. I have now fallen into material enjoyment, which is exactly like a covered well. I have had enough. I am not going to enjoy anymore. Just see how I have become like a dancing monkey in the hands of my wife. Because of this, I am condemned. And just few verses back, what we read, her smiling, feminine, and all that. And now you see. So, by the grace of spiritual master, anything is possible. Most fallen soul or most attached, stuck up also can be brought out. That is the power of the spiritual master. That is the power of devotional service. Read the purport.
How condemn is the advancement of material knowledge can be understood from the behavior of Maharaj Priyavrata. He performed such wonderful acts as creating another sun, which shine during the night, and creating a chariot so great that its wheels form vast oceans. These activities are so great that modern scientists cannot even imagine how such things can be done. Maharaj Prevrat acted very wonderfully in the material field of activities, but because he was dealing in sense gratification, ruling his kingdom and dancing to the indications of his beautiful wife, he personally condemned himself. When we think about this example of Maharaj Priyavrata, we can just consider how degraded is the modern civilization of materialistic advancement. Modern so-called scientists and other materialists are very satisfied because they can construct great bridges, roads, and machines, but such activities are nothing comparable to those of Maharaj Priyavrata. If Maharaj Priyavrata could condemn himself in spite of his wonderful activities, how condemned we are in our so-called advancement of material civilization. We can conclude that such advancement has nothing to do with the problems of the living entity entangled within this material world. Unfortunately, modern man does not understand his entanglement and how condemned he, nor does he know what kind of body he is going to have in the next life. From a spiritual point of view, a great kingdom, beautiful wife, and wonderful material activities are all impediments to spiritual advancement. Maharaj Prevat had served the great sage Narada sincerely. Therefore, even though he had accepted material opulences, he could not be deviated from his own task. He again became Krishna conscious, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Niya Vikramana Sosti Pratyavayo na vidyate Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. In devotional service, there is no loss or diminution, and even a small service rendered in devotional life is sufficient to save one from the greatest danger. Bhagavad Gita 2.40. Such renunciation as Maharaj Priyavrata's is possible only by the grace of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, when people are powerful or when they have a beautiful wife, a beautiful home, and a material popularity, they become more and more entangled. Priyavrata Maharaj, however, having been completely trained by the great sage Narada, received his Krishna consciousness in spite of all impediments.
Yes. Prabhupada is condemning material civilization and so-called material advancement. We see around everywhere in the world, and we stay in this metropolitan city kind of Pune. And anywhere you go, huge skyscraper buildings are coming up and hi-fi roads, and people also so proud of their lavish living and all that. But these are all empty. There's nothing. This is not the solution for all the problems. That's why people are frustrated also. So it is not required. Prabhupada is saying that such advancement has nothing to do with the problems of the living entity entangled within this material world. Modern man does not understand his entanglement and how condemned he is. Nor does he know what kind of body is going to have in the next life. So we should not be carried away by this at least, isn't it? When we see that people also such hi-fi machines they have. So this is all. We may use this thing, but we should never get carried away. We should not think that this is what. Like in our heart also, when we see people we come across, they will talk their desires. That I'm planning to go. They are very enthusiastic. New people. Yesterday we discussed about glories of preaching to new people. Their enthusiasm, but before that enthusiasm, they have other enthusiasm. They will talk of their material desires. I'm planning to go to US for this and then become very big and all. So we should not get carried away thinking that, oh, he's enjoying life. I wish I could also, but I what to do. My life is quite restricted as a Varmachari or even those who are Grihasthas initiated. We should not feel regret. We should feel compassion. Poor fellow. Already so much suffering in India. Now he's planning to go to US and double, triple, make his anxieties increase, expand, multiply. We should feel pity and help them in some way or the other. At least personally, we should not be getting carried away by this. There is no charm there. Okay, so what is our Vishnu Chakti Thakur saying? This is 37th. He says, I have acted badly since I have been completely absorbed with my senses in the well of disturbing sense objects caused by ignorance. It is now enough. How unfortunate I am, like a dancing monkey for my wife. In this way, he criticized himself. That, what is that word? Vinoda Mrugam. Vinod means joke, Mrugam, a dancing animal for the pleasure of Vanitaya, my wife. I became Vinodam Mrugam, Mam, Dhik Dhik Iti, condemned. Alas, alas. Vishaya Andakopi. So much is condemning himself. Okay, 38. Translation. By the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaj Priyavrat reawakened to his senses. He divided all his earthly possessions among his obedient sons. He gave up everything, including his wife, with whom he had enjoyed so much sense gratification, and his great and opulent kingdom, and he completely renounced all attachment. His heart, having been cleansed, became a place of pastimes for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he was able to return to the path of Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, and resume the position he had attained by the grace of the great saint Narada. So Prabhupada is saying, Chetodarpan Mahajan, read from that, our hearts are meant for the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, Amogha was the son-in-law of Sarvam Bhattacharya, who called Mahaprabhu to take prasadam in his house. His wife and he himself were serving such nice prasadam. And in between, when he had gone inside to get more prasad, Amogha, his son-in-law, came and started saying, just see this sannyasi, what a sense gratifier, how much he eats and all that. Started condemning the Lord. When Sarvam Bhattacharya heard some noise, he came, he saw Amogha condemning Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He took a stick, started running after him to beat him. But he ran away. The Sarvam Bhattacharya was very upset. His wife condemned her son-in-law. Let my daughter become a widow. Shati become widow. And Mahaprabhu was only laughing. Why you are making so much? Don't worry. like that. But then very soon, Amoga contracted cholera and he was troubled like anything, close to death. Mahaprabhu went to his house. Sarvam Bhattacharya and his wife were very happy. Let him die only because he criticized, offended Lord. But Lord went to Amoga's house and found him lying there on the bed, next close to death only. Lord kept his hand on the heart of Amoga and said, "Oh Amoga, your heart is meant for the Lord, a sitting place for the Lord. Why are you allowing this envy to be there? Just give it up." And he had to give up because otherwise he had to give up body only for his offending Lord. And he gave up the envy. He became dear to the Lord. Just because he was close and dear to Sarvam Bhattacharya, Lord delivered. So this is the beauty of being close to a devotee, that he got delivered. So our hearts are meant for the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we all see some dirty thought comes, some bad thought, envious, lusty, angry, proud, illusion thought comes in our mind. That heart should think about the Lord's pastime, but thinking of something else only. So we should condemn. We should know our heart is not functioning properly. Just like little bit that cardiac attack, isn't it? How much how much disturbance in the person if he's conscious, and others, oh, his heart is not beating properly or has stopped beating or whatever it is, some blockage there. And how much endeavor is made, isn't it? Just what they call, or removing the blockage, angioplasty and this and that, bypass surgery, taking lot of consuming time, money, energy. So just because that gross heart is not functioning as the way it should function. So much endeavor, so many doctors, so much money, so much time, so much ha ha hoo, and so much disturbance in all the relatives. And so much is done for little malfunctioning of that heart. And how much should be the endeavor, isn't it? For so much deviation of the heart, of not thinking the pastimes of the Lord and thinking of so many dirty things, so many blockages, lust, pride, greed, envy, anger, illusion. Whatever the 6 arteries are blocked with this 6 and what not more than this. How much we should be, isn't it? What do you think? Isn't it worth discussing? People are not bothered about it. In fact, they want to increase their lust. They want to have more blockages in their heart and let the heart stop beating only. Because, because in that extreme lust, I also want my heartbeat to stop and think of her only or him only, or think of money only, think of my enemy only. Let the heart stop beating. But heart should beat with the pastimes of the Lord. That is hardly thought by anyone. Okay, read ahead.
Our hearts are meant for the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that one should be fully Krishna conscious, thinking of Krishna. As he himself advised, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuro, BG 18.65. This should be our only business. One whose heart is not clean cannot think of the transcendental pastime of the Supreme Lord. But if one can once again place the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart, he very easily becomes qualified to renounce material attachments.
So if you want, you can underline this. One may not be
Maya-
clean in heart. One whose heart is not clean cannot think of transcendental. But if again he keeps the Lord, so that's what our endeavor should be. Whatever contamination comes in, which will come in because of Maya's temptations, allurements, very difficult. Ekaki amar, nahi payable. Difficult to fight with all this. But somehow, if we go in the ashram of devotees, they will instill Krishna in our heart. And again, we'll be qualified to renounce material attachment. Yes.
Mayavadi philosophers, yogis, and jnanis try to give up this material world by simply by saying Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. This world is false. There is no use of it. Let us take to Brahman. Such theoretical knowledge will not help us. If we believe that Brahman is the real truth, we have to place within our heart the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, as Maharaj Ambrisha did. Savai Manah Krishna Padar Bindayo.
Next line you may underline.
One has to fix the lotus feet of the Lord within his heart. then he gets the strength to be freed from material entanglement.
Yes. So that is the formula. Sometimes we may somebody stuck in material life and we are trying to force him, condemn him. What Prabhu? How much you are attached? That will not work. What you have to do? Instill Krishna in his heart. You tell him about Krishna rather than trying to pull him out of it will not work in that way. Give him Krishna, let Krishna, beautiful Krishna, all attractive Krishna manifest in his heart. Then he will be attracted to Krishna. Naturally, for that, he will give up all these material things which are entangling. So sometimes, how many of you seen that our attitude towards some people who are stuck is like, be very forceful and but it is a little wrong approach because we are not presenting Krishna to him properly. How many of you have done that? I also did it, and we tend to do that. We condemn him. We try all that Sam, Dam, Danda, Ved. Arey Prabhu, just see you are initiated and and then this is not good. So many things we do, except the one which should be done, presenting Krishna to him very nice. And that's what we can see. All the great souls, pure devotees, spiritual masters, they present Krishna very nicely to their disciples, followers, and then disciples feel, yeah, yes, what am I doing? And in fact, they themselves, the gurus, advanced devotees, pure devotees, they are mad after Krishna. So when we see them like that, then we also get attracted. Amito Kangal, Krishna Krishna boli, dhai tava pache pache. Tuma, what it says? Krishna se tomar, Krishna dite paro, tomar shakatyache. You have Krishna and you are so much attracted to Krishna. Seeing you attracted to Krishna, I also get attracted to Krishna because I see you and I am bankrupt. I don't have any Krishna. So I run behind you calling Krishna, Krishna, give me Krishna. So that craving should be created in the heart for Krishna. Then just beating him, condemning him and all so many things, that will not work. Yes, ahead.
Maharaj Priyavrat was able to give up his opulent kingdom, and he also gave up the association of his beautiful wife as if she were a dead body. However beautiful one's wife and however attractive her bodily features, one is no longer interested in her when her body is dead. We praise a beautiful woman for her body, but that somebody,
same
body, when bereft of a spirit soul, is no longer interesting to any lusty man. Maharaj Priyavrat was so strong by the grace of the Lord that even though his beautiful wife was alive, he could give up her association exactly like one who is forced to give up the association of a dead wife.
So Prabhupada says, like, in case you have seen, means woman's body may be very attractive to man and man's body may be very attractive to woman. But if you see the dead body, then we are not attracted. And what to speak if you have sometimes seen postmortem of a body of male or female, inside such a horrible stuff. Only Brahmaji's packaging department is so high class with the skin and some features. That body of the opposite sex looks or appears very attractive, very appealing. But as soon as it is cut open, then inside is horrible only. All inside structures, if you see, they do so many implantation, what do you call it? Heart transplantation or not bypass, this liver, that is okay as long as it is covered. But as soon as the body is opened, then inside it's all horrible. The blood pool, and in that, what yesterday I was hearing, it is a skull with the crossbones. That is the structure. This is skull and is bones, crossbones. That is this body. Just like this building only. But nice painting and all that. Then it gives nice appearance and one gets attracted. So there is nothing so special about it. However beautiful one's wife and however attractive her body features, one is no longer interested in her when her body is dead. So 1 to 17, I think, Prabhupada talks, Shishrusho Saddhadanasya or whatever, Nashta Prayasho Bhadresho, that there are two obstacles for a practitioner. What are they? Wealth and women. For Priyavrat, we can see how much opulent kingdom he had. He gave it up all. And woman, so many beautiful wives, and in particular this Barhishmati, her attractive features are already described. He could easily give it up by the grace of the Lord. that happened. And then Prabhupada quotes na dhanam na janam na sundarim. And then ahead he says, for one who desires to advance in spiritual life, attachment to material opulence and attachment to a beautiful wife are two great impediments. Such attachments are condemned even more than suicide. Therefore, anyone desiring to cross beyond material nescience must, by the grace of Krishna, be freed from attachment to women and money. When Maharaj Priyavrat became completely free from these attachments, he could again peacefully follow the principles instructed by the great sage Narada. Bhogeshware prasaktanam taya aparata chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhona vidiyate. So bhog and Aishwarya, material opulence and the enjoyment, material enjoyment, they are very dangerous. They take away one's intelligence. One should keep away, or if one has them, by the grace of Lord coming through devotees, it can be removed. And this infatuation does not allow one to do bhajan properly. In the bhajan, it becomes such an interference, so much disturbance, all the time thinking about that only. Maline haile man, nahi Krishna smaran. Or woman, thought about woman, then one cannot think of Krishna. Mind needs to be very pure. Now last section 39 to 41, 3 verses talk about praise of Priyavrat Maharaj. He is being praised. There are, just 1 minute, before getting into that, what is our Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur saying? By regaining his discrimination through the mercy of the Lord, he divided the earth among his obedient sons as their inheritance and gave up his great wealth and power along with his queen, as if it were all a dead body. Being completely detached, realizing the pastimes of the Lord in his heart, he again followed the path instructed by Narada. In purport, he says he regained adhigata, his sense of discrimination, atma prayava marshan, by the mercy of the Lord, and again followed the path instructed by Narada. After dividing earth among his obedient sons, he realized the pastimes of the Lord in his heart and shed tears of joy with hair standing on end. So he experienced ecstasy, bhav stage, shedding tears, ashru taranga, and hair standing on end, romancha kampa. All this he experienced. 39. There are many famous verses regarding Maharaj Priyavrat's activities. No one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead could do what Maharaj Priyavrat has done. Maharaj Priyavrat dissipated the darkness of night, and with the rims of his great chariot, he excavated 7 oceans. Prabhupada in purport says, he is so celebrated that his activities are compared to those of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes a sincere servant and devotee of the Lord is also called Bhagavan. Sri Narada is called Bhagavan, and Lord Shiva and Vyasadeva are also sometimes called Bhagavan. This designation, Bhagavan, is sometimes conferred upon a pure devotee by the grace of the Lord, so that he will be very highly esteemed. Maharaj Priyavrat was such a devotee. Here the word Ishwaram is coming, no? Bhagwan word directly is not coming, but Prabhupada is talking. Some Acharya might have spoken. Hmm? Hmm? Yeah, that's what. So Prabhupada is referring to Bhagwan word. Here Ishwaram word has come. Okay, I think Jiva Goswami also says something. Doesn't? About 39th verse? Sure, I'll just check once. Because he has given not on each verse. He has given a 39 something is there. The following verse praise Priyavrat verses By going in the sky, the chariot, it made a circle like the sun. That much only in the purport. By going in the sky, the chariot, it made circle like the sun. Okay, 40th. To stop the quarreling among different peoples, Maharaj Priyavrat marked boundaries at rivers and at the edges of mountains and forests so that no one would trespass upon another's property. See how intelligent he is. Amazingly has done. Other people keep quarreling. So by natural demarcation with all these trees, rivers, mountains, then people won't fight. Read the purport.
The example set by Maharaj Priyavrat in marking of different states is still followed. As indicated here, different classes of men are destined to live in different areas, and therefore the boundaries of various tracts of land, which are described here as islands, should be defined by different rivers, forests, and hills. This is also mentioned in relation to Maharaj Pruthu, who was born from the dead body of his father by the manipulation of great sages. Maharaj Prithu's father was very sinful, and therefore a black man called Nishada was first born from his dead body. The Nishada race was given a place in the forest because by nature they are thieves and rogues. As animals are given places in various forests and hills, men who are like animals are also destined to live there. One cannot be promoted to civilized life unless one comes to Krishna consciousness. For by nature, one is destined to live in a particular situation according to one's karma and association with the modes of nature. If men want to live in harmony and peace, they must take to Krishna consciousness, for they cannot achieve the highest standard while absorbed in the bodily concept of life. Maharaj Priyavrata divided the surface of the globe into different islands so that each class of men would live peacefully and not clash with the others. The modern idea of nationhood has gradually developed from the divisions made by Maharaj Priyavrata.
Similarly said, like India also is protected on 3 sides by oceans and 4th side by Himalaya. So this is special protection given to India, current India, by the Lord. So not so easy. Down below, far below is the South Pole, quite far, like that. The culture is protected from all sides. And likewise, in many other places, that kind of boundaries are set. So that, just like that, we have heard in that journey home, no man's land, isn't it? No man's land means no one lives there. So such kind of areas are there, deserts and all that. Naturally, nobody can live. And that's how the communities, big, huge communities are separated from each other. And they all can live within each of that peacefully without encroaching upon others' property or disturbing others. Okay, what is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur saying? He arranged the situation of the earth for the welfare of the people so that there were divisions and borders for each continent by means of rivers, mountains, and forests. He arranged the earth with continents and made boundaries by rivers and mountains for the happiness of the leaders of the people, so they could exist without quarreling. The same. Last verse, 41st. As a great follower and devotee of the sage Narada, Maharaj Priyavrat considered hellish the opulences he had achieved by dint of fruitive activities and mystic power, whether in the lower or heavenly planetary systems or in human society. The kind of opulence he had and how he enjoyed, and comparing to that now, how much is condemning and giving it up all at once. That is very surprising. We never had so much opulence, like we become brahmacharis. We had something, not much, little bit here and there, that we may give up. But then again, the tendency is to get attached to something within ashram, isn't it? Like if you go to yatra, immediately the first thing is we check, okay, the wind will blow from this window, so I will sleep here. Immediately we put our foam and mosquito net. Like my claim is, it's understood I am there. And bag also. Because वो mosquito net कोई भी उड़ा के, लेकिन उसमें अगर अपना बैग रखे तो थोड़ा heavy होता है. तो then and full-fledged like क्या कहते हो, boundary is set. So touch not this area like that. And similarly after taking bath, गमछा कहाँ सुखा, ये door पे, ये railing पे, और वो उसका वो क्या कहते हैं, hook होता है window का, उसको में अपना कोपिन. So much is there. The complete renunciation does not develop. It is said a brahmachari is more attached to his kopin than a grihastha is to his wife. That's how that brahmachari, for the sake of kopin, he got married also. So we can certainly seek blessings of Maharaj Priyavrat. That how opulent, your opulence we cannot imagine. We can't even see that the areas which he was ruling. Can't even imagine. And amount of time he was, like most of us, we joined Brahmacharya ashram and just few years have passed and we are in our what do you call that, mid age and all that, middle age, and death is soon there, not far. Hardly any life. How long maximum a brahmachari remains brahmachari? 50, 60 years, isn't it? By then death only comes. Is there anyone who is 60-year brahmacharya ashram? That much. Because if he becomes at the age of 20, which also nowadays late only, then 80 he has to live. Like that. His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj is the oldest sannyasi in whole of Gaudiya mission. There has not, because Prabhupada gave him sannyas quite early at the age of 18, and is there now. What is the Maharaj age? 70. So he's the oldest sannyasi. Huh? 52 years of sannyas. There is no one in whole of Gaudiya Sampradaya for sannyasi for such a long period. Because he was given sannyas quite early and he's there now also in his age. So we owe our brahmacharya how long? 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and death only. So we can certainly praise and also take the blessings of Priyavrat Maharaj for his greatness. Okay, read the purport. Purport.
Has said that the position of a devotee is so super excellent that a devotee does not consider any material opulence worth having. There are different types of opulences on the earth, in the heavenly planets, and even in the lower planetary system known as Patala. A devotee, however, knows that they are all material and consequently is not at all interested in them. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Param Drishtva Nivartate. Sometimes yogis and gyanis voluntarily give up all material opulences to practice their systems of liberation and taste spiritual bliss. However, they frequently fall down because artificial renunciation of material opulences cannot endure. One must have superior taste in spiritual life. Then he can give up material opulence. Maharaj Priyavrat had already tasted spiritual bliss, and therefore he had no interest in any of the material achievements available in the lower, higher, or middle planetary systems. Thus
So
ends.
he says they frequently fall down, these gyanis, yogis, etc. because of artificial renunciation. One must have a superior taste in spiritual life. Then he can give up material opulence. The Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, a follower dear to the Lord, he considered the wealth of the lower planets, heaven and earth, obtained by karma and yoga to be equal to hell. This is Priyavrat considering all that. And in purport, he says, Bhaumam means lower planets, Divyam means Swarga, and Manunam, Manusham, okay, Manusham means humans on earth. Mahitvam means wealth. He gave up everything. Okay, any question? I think devotee asked in between, but still. Everything is clear? All doubts gone about Priyavrat Maharaj? He becomes a very object of all, what do you call, doubting, criticism. Okay, itana. Earlier Brahma is criticize क्या अच्छे से कर रहा है वो, he's doing sannyasi and he's, but at least today about Priyavrat, yesterday I think many devotees must be wondering why Brahma is, so it was clarified, Lord's wish. And here Priyavrat, nobody is doubting Priyavrat, and we will pray at his lotus feet. How many will pray? Because that's what I said. What kind of opulence he had and how he has renounced it all. We never had so much opulence, and our renunciation is not yet complete because we still have some tendencies here and there. Occupy space, this safe, that safe. Bathrooms are also fixed. Isn't it? This is the place I take bath, and this is my time. And if somebody by mistake new person comes and he's taking bath there, we feel, oh, इसको पता नहीं है. ये आया कहाँ से? Same thing when we sit for chanting also. If we all have fixed place, if somebody has come and sat there, Sunday it happens, so many new people come. अरे ये मेरे जगह पे बैठी है. So much disturbance inside. जैसे कि whole शून्यायितम temple hall सर्वम, that place विरहेण में. That place मेरी जगह चला गया. अरे मंडे को कोई नहीं आएगा मंदिर में, तुम अकेले बैठना उधर. है कि नहीं? You see Sunday and Monday, your place will be gone on Sunday. Monday ko you can sleep in that place. So much is available. So we should learn from Priyavrat Maharaj how to be detached. And but that requires the mercy of the Lord coming through pure devotees like Narad Muni. Then we'll be able to give up. Okay, anyway. Shri Priyavrat Maharaj ki jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.